The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Nierman, aka Good Logic. As I'm about to give a shout out to my diggers, I was struck with a certain thought that I wanted to share with you, my fine audience. And that is this. When I first started watching podcasts, or whatever you call this thing that I'm doing, which I don't know if it's really a podcast because podcast I always thought was just audio, not video, whatever it is that I'm doing, I don't even know what to call it. When I started watching this, and I saw Nick Ricada doing this, I was like, I see people super chatting, and I'm like, why? Why would you do that? It makes no sense to me. It's like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. It makes no sense. Like, I thought super chatting was insane. Like, you have to be a crazy person to actually just throw out super chats. And I was like, and initially I was like, I guess it's like a gratitude type of thing. Like, hey, we appreciate your work. Let me throw you some money, which is nice. It's a nice thing. I didn't understand the incessant super chatting that I saw. And then I found myself doing it. And this is what I realized was that the reason someone sends a super chat is because they're watching a show. They likely, if they're watching it enough, they likely find it engaging, or whether it's the chat, the host, whatever it is. And it's someone who they like, respect, whatever. And they're enjoying the product of whatever's being presented, entertainment, information, thought, humor, whatever it is. And they sort of want to steer it in a certain way by having the host engage with that thought. And I tried it, and it became like addictive to me. I was like, I'm in Viva's chat, Nick's chat. I'm like tossing out super chat, tossing. I was like, and I got it. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I like this guy, and I want to get their thought about this thought that popped through my head. I like, or some video or tweet or whatever that I want to share with them, that I want to get their thought on their reaction to. So I got it. And I'm saying it I'm saying this to share with you as I give my shout out to the diggers, okay? That my locals community, people who sign up and they basically pay $5 a month, and it's like having, for that $5, it's like a super chat, which it's going to come across my feed. Yeah, it's not during the course of the show. And the reason I thought of this is because this week, like on many occasions, I see the feed on my locals, and I'm like, and I'll check out the video, and I'll be like, wow, I really need to watch this with my audience. I want to check this out with my audience. So I was like, it's like the permanent super chat for my locals community. So that's why I want to give a shout out to my diggers, because this week in particular, they just keep giving me one thing after another, of just like great ideas of things, show topics for me to cover, or whatever it is that is just, I'm like, they basically they're like my show producers. And the two videos that I'm sharing with you today are no exception. In fact, I actually saw one that was dropped 47 minutes ago that I'm like, oh, I really want to watch that with my audience. Like, it was with Douglas K. Murray, and I'm like, I really want to do that. And I was just like, yeah, you know what? That's like so much. It's like, if you're gonna super chat, that's like, it seems like it's a smart way to do it. That was just my thought. I don't know. That's goodlogic.locals.com. Goodlogic.locals.com. It's basically a $5 super chat that lasts for 30 days. There you go. All right. just thought I'd share that with you. Okay, Samuel Williams says, I'm crazy. I know here's your shackles, but your dad used hoopla last night. I finally understand the meaning. Tell him thanks. Did he say the word hoopla? What about hullabaloo? Hullabaloo. That's funny. I didn't even notice it. That's pretty funny. Shut up, Joe, and put your dad back on. Love you, bro. Yeah. You go back, go watch the Chiefs game, Pastor. Mahomes. Go watch Patrick Mahomes. I have work to do. All right. Let's get this started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started. There we go. Here we go. Patrick bet David. I saw the first like 90 seconds and I was like, yeah, I want to watch this one. This one's a good one. This is a good one. This is a good one. Israel versus Palestine. Did World War III just begin? Ooh. Patrick bet David. I'm assuming he's Israeli. That's a very Israeli name. Bet David. How is that possible? I didn't know about that. How is that possible? Oh, yeah. There we go. There we go. Muted, no sound, muted, no sound, muted. I'm just basically engaging myself. See, that's my perma super chat. I'm talking to myself. God. So dumb. We'll start over. I'll give the same commentary a second time. Don't worry. I know it's fixed now.
Look, at this point, you cannot turn on your phone or go on TV without seeing news about Hamas, Israel, all the tragic. Some of you have seen the video with the father walking around with his daughter in Palestine and all the stuff that's going on in Israel and so many questions.
It was funny when you said, what's this over here? I just saw this. Bad habit to self-mute. Okay. I was sitting at dinner tonight. So I'm with Lady Logic and my son and his new wife and my daughter and my son and my youngest daughter who's 9 years old. So we were talking about this place and we were talking about this school which had a couple of bad incidents and so I said, yeah, one of them, I said, yeah, many years ago, they actually had a student who was butchered. And my 9-year-old goes, what's butchered? And I was like, and Lady Logic just sort of like looked at me and I was just like, yeah, butcher means killed. It's like, there's no way for me to fix this. And because she's so, we keep her so cloistered. So like I said that this student was butchered. So then she's like, and I said, and there was another student, a different incident where there was a student there who, and then I'm trying to think, how do I word this? So I actually used the phrase self-deleted. And I was like, oh, you see, this is where my work life comes in handy, that I come up with a term like self. So I said, yeah, there was another student there who self-deleted. And she goes, what's self-deleted? What's self-deleted? And I was like, oh, well, that's when someone is on their computer and all they can do is they just keep hitting delete over and over and over again. And her older brother goes, yeah, and they do it all by themselves. So when I saw this thing, bad habit to self-mute, I was like, Yeah. Yeah. What's self-deleted? Okay. Anyway, let me get back to work.
Coming up, it was like, hey, how did Israel, some say the greatest air force in the world, how did you not know this was taking place? Don't you have the best intelligence in the world, Mossad? You mean to tell me for 1 year, Hamas built a city identical to the one that you have to prepare and train on how to attack, but you didn't know that this was taking place?
That was the part that I commented earlier when it was muted for all of you. I can't even believe that. That's crazy that they had a city and Mossad didn't know that they had like a staging city as like practice. Really? Really?
Why is Iran involved in this right after U.S. unfreezes $6 billion and then Iran's going out there chanting Magbat Amrika, Magbat Amrika? And then history-wise, who owned this land before? What happened pre-1948? Did Palestine own the land? And who owned it before Palestine owned the land? And are all Palestinians supporting of Hamas? Does Fatah support Hamas? Again, so many questions. We went out there and did research, sources, everybody on what's going on. Our team put a lot of time behind this. And we're going to talk a lot about this here today. And I can make you one guarantee. No matter what side you're on, there's going to be some parts you're going to disagree with. There's going to be some parts you're going to agree with. Here's what you know about me. You need to know about me. I'm an American, a proud American. I am a Christian, and I was born and raised in Iran, and I lived there for 10 years.
No way. Really? I'm not even, I can't, really? I was positive he was an Israeli. I was positive. He looks like an Israeli. He has an Israeli accent. He has the skin tone, the facial features of an Israeli. He has the attitude, everything about. I've met so many Americanized Israelis who sound like him, talk like him, same inflections. And the last name Bet David. That's, I mean, it's House of David. Really? Iranian Christian raised here? Wow. I didn't know. I can't even believe it. I'm shocked. Color me shocked. Shocked, I say, shocked.
So when I hear Magbat America, and when I hear all these different things that's going on, I'm not one that just watches the videos out there. I've lived some of these experiences. So I'm not leaning on propaganda. I'm sharing with you what my life experiences have been. Let
me clean off some of these here. Kyle says, as a proud Catholic, may God protect his people and destroy their enemies. I'm praying for Israel and for your family. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. Slow-Mo Savage, I live alone, work at home. Super chats are how I maintain a bit of social interactivity. Hey, you and me, Slow-Mo. You and me, right now. Bam, bam, bam. We're mixing it up. You and me, Slow-Mo. Oh, you're slow-mo. I should be like, moving in slow motion. Get better at your job, Joan Huber Collection Company. Thank you. Thank you much. It was empty pre-1948. Mark Twain wrote about it even. Yeah, it was. That's what people don't appreciate is it was a dust bowl before Israelis built it up. It was nothing. This was not the Mecca oasis of the Middle East. It was nothing. It was really nothing that was growing there, nothing.
Said that, let's get right into it. Okay, so if you give value out of this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. If you look at this chart right here, this shows you what's happened to the land in Israel, Palestine over the years. So if you look at 1917, this entire land, before the British mandate in Palestine, Jews made up around 6% of the total population. Then you go to 1948, war ends, Israel gets their land, 750,000 Palestinians are expelled. Zionist military forces these guys to go to different places, captured 78% of historic Palestine. Then you go to 1967, Israel occupies Gaza.
Expelled is a loose term. If they pack up and leave their houses, my father says is what happened. He said that it was with rare exception anyone was evicted. He said in Talpiot, In Harnof, there was one house that was evicted, and that was basically it. The rest of them just left and said, we're out of here for the war. I don't know. I'll tell you this much. I would lean. I struggle to believe that. I don't know, because they were granted citizenship. There are a lot of Arabs there. A lot of Arabs or Israeli citizens.
Gaza and the West Bank. Then you go to 95, the Oslo Accords, which
it's not like they just occupied. They were attacked and conquered territory, Patrick. They were attacked. Meaning they're sitting at home. Their enemies tried to invade. They repelled and chased the enemy beyond the enemy's own borders and conquered that land. That's kind of how land was been acquired for, I don't know, 5 millennia or so.
The occupied West Bank was divided into 3 different areas. Area A, Palestinian control. Area B, joint Israeli and Palestine. And Area C, Israeli control. And under Trump, this plan would allow Israel to annex huge parts of the occupied West Bank and give Palestinians control of only 15% of historic Palestine.
Yeah, this is Al Jazeera's perspective on it, which is, very anti-Israel type of perspective.
Okay, so now we take a look at the next one here. Here's mapping Israelis' occupation. So if you look at this, Israel all the way at the top, you see 5.8 million people, 1.6 million Palestinian citizens living together. You look to the right, you'll see Jerusalem. Again, 349, 4,500 Palestinians. East Jerusalem, 220, 345,000 Palestinians. Then on the south, you'll see it says West Bank. It says West because it's west of Jordan River, so they call it the West Bank. You'll see.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that the West Bank is in eastern Israel. That's what makes it very confusing.
463,000 Israelis, 2.7 million Palestinians. But go all the way east, you'll see Gaza, 2.1 million.
All the way east, all the way west. Yeah.
Palestinians, you'll see 0 Israelis, okay? So the one question that comes up is do all Palestinians support what's going on with Hamas and what they're doing right now? Like, there's no way in the world everybody can support what some of these guys from Hamas are doing with families, the rape, these stories you hear about. 58% of the Palestinian population in Gaza Strip do support what Hamas is doing, but only 42%, those from West Bank, support what Hamas is doing. So less at West Bank, obviously higher at Gaza Strip. So a few things to know about Hamas. Hamas is a Palestine political faction that controls the Gaza Strip, which, by the way, if you want to know how big it is, it's twice the size of D.C. It's roughly 142 square miles, which has been under Israeli blockade backed by Egypt since Hamas seized control of the coastal strip in 2007. The blockade restricts the imports of goods, including electronic and computer equipment, that could be used to make weapons and prevents most people from leaving the territory, according to New York Times.
And yet it seems like they keep getting their hands on missiles and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't understand what's with the deal with the blockade.
So at this point, we know that more than 2 million Palestinians live in Gaza Strip today. But the key factor is the following here. The tiny, crowded coastal city has nearly a 50% unemployment rate, and Gaza's living conditions, health systems, and infrastructure have all deteriorated under the blockade. Why?
The question, though, is when you say under the blockade, see, this is another part where phrasing is very important here. Is it under the blockade or is it under Hamas? Because that's a pretty important question. That's a very, very important question. Is it because there's, when you look at why is it that Gaza is not as nice as it was, let's say perhaps 20 years ago? Is it because there was a blockade, or is it because Hamas has been has basically been dedicating themselves towards trying to figure out how to destroy Israel rather than how to help their own people?
Because people are afraid of doing business with them. They feel like there's risk to do business
my
with
brother.
them. To the policies, the way they're running it. We'll even talk about the Hamas charter here in a minute.
I haven't checked Twitter like all day, so I don't know if you invited me. But yeah, I should be free tomorrow if that's what the $5 super chat was for, to sort of say, hey Joe, you didn't respond to me on Twitter, so I assume that you're probably having a show tomorrow at noon, and I assume that I will be there. So I hope that helps. And Common Ground says you get a shout out and props on Bourbon with Barnes this evening. Nice, sweet. All right, Barnes, my boy Roberto. Oh,
minute when you see
thanks
what
for
they
the
had
heads up
before
on that, Colin.
1988 versus when they recently updated in 2017. People don't trust Hamas because most people look at Hamas and they think ISIS. There isn't a trust for Hamas and the way they've been doing things, even though they're trying to change. But by the way, they just hurt themselves this week when they said, we're no longer who we used to be. We're changing. We're this, we're that. And
Yeah. Why is it people compare them to ISIS? I don't understand that. Why would anyone compare them to ISIS?
and boom, 900 Israelis, more than 900 Israelis you kill, and you think you're gaining credibility. That unemployment is about to go to the roof, even worse than what it is right now. So Israel says the blockade is necessary to stop the flow of arms into the territory, but Palestinians and aid groups say it is collective punishment and exacerbates dire economic and social conditions. So when you look at countries that recognize Palestine in 2023, it's 138 out of 193 UN members that do. That's roughly 71%. So 55 countries do not recognize Palestine in 2023. But if you
because they don't want recognition, they're not looking for statehood. I don't understand.
Look at Israel at the same time, it's 165 out of 193 countries.
That's even more bizarre that there are any countries that don't recognize Israel. Look, you might hate Russia, but you recognize it's a country. You might hate Ukraine, but you recognize it's a country. Yeah, you might hate China, but you recognize it's a country. And why the heck does anyone care? Like, oh, this is so dumb. I'm sorry. And I like Patrick a lot. I have a lot of respect for this guy. A lot. I mean, he basically does what I try to do. And I think that the only difference between myself and Patrick Bait David or whatever is a world of talent that he has compared to the insignificant talent that I have, a studio and 2 million followers. Otherwise, he and I are exactly the same. Is it 2 million? I don't even know how. It might be a lot more than that. 4.9 million followers. Otherwise, he and I are pretty much twins. We're pretty much twins right there. So, yeah. I like him. I respect him. And I said Patrick Bateman. I said Patrick Bet David. PBD. Patrick Bet David. I'm simply saying, but it's not like he exists because I choose to recognize him. And it's not, and I don't understand this concept about why does anyone need countries to be recognized? Like, does that mean anything? Oh, so countries don't recognize. I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? You might not recognize Russia, but you try crossing its borders, especially if you're trying to leave. I don't know what that means. We don't recognize. This is this is why the UN is such a joke.
And 28 countries don't recognize Israel. So now what happened? Hamas, the Palestinian military group that controls the Gaza Strip, launched a surprise attack on Israel. The attack was the largest in decades and caught the Israeli government, military, and intelligence agencies by surprise. Israel immediately responded with airstrikes on Gaza, targeting centers that house Hamas militants. Israel also mobilized its military reservists and deployed troops to the Gaza border. And the number we keep hearing about is 300,000 reservists that they activated. So then Israel has pounded the Gaza Strip for third day in a row now and announced a total blockade of the already besieged Gaza Strip, including a ban on food and water. And the Israeli army just said that
I don't know what that means, a ban on food and water. They're really not letting any food come in? Like, I don't understand what that means. I have a hard time believing that's true.
The 300,000.
But I mean, that is what people are saying. I don't know what that means.
Reservists they activated, 100,000 of the reserve troops have amassed near the fence with Gaza. So if you look at this year, they've been under the blockade, the Israeli air, land, and sea blockade. Now, obviously, that's a partial blockade they've had since 2007, and it's just full on now. So if you look at that red surrounding.
So what the heck is that whole thing when they say, and I mean this sincerely, I don't even know what the term means. There has been a blockade, but now there's really a blockade. I thought a blockade is a blockade. That's like saying, like, now it's unless you're telling me that the blockade now is affecting other products, that before some was coming in and some isn't, now it is. I don't know. I don't understand. It's like, no, now we really mean it. Before, when I screamed stop, I didn't really mean it. But now when I screaming stop, I really mean it this time. I don't understand. That means you weren't really saying stop before. My message didn't go through, but yeah, see tomorrow. MIC wants the weapons to be spread. Mike, what's MIC? I'm not sure what you're saying. I don't know. You're nowhere near insignificant, LOL. I mean, I don't personally feel insignificant. I'm simply saying, from a social media perspective, compared to him, I'm insignificant, and I'm comfortable with that. I wasn't saying that out of envy. I was simply saying, I was simply recognizing reality. Much like, I can recognize the reality that China is a real country, and Israel is a real country, and Palestine rejects statehood, which means they're not. It's like, oh, if you recognize this person's gender, that makes them the gender. That's insanity. Brittany, I couldn't watch live last night, but the interaction with your dad and his wife had me dying. Oh, yeah, that was great. When he got the phone call, I'm saying they're like, okay. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but there was a certain point when he's like, yeah, he referred to his wife as my stepmother. And I like her. I really do. She's a very fine woman. She's a really good person. I'm really glad that my father found her and married her, all that stuff. But I had moved out of the house like 15 years before my mom passed. So like, I got married 15 years before that. So like, yeah, just because my dad married after he became a widow doesn't make her my stepmom. But I was just like, I would never say that to him. I know he's probably not watching now. That's why I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna bite my tongue. Then he put the phone in the bag and zipped it up. I lost it. Thank you for sharing with us. He's amazing. He's some people take him the right way, some people don't. And if you take him the right way, he's amazing. He really is. But yeah, I love him. Thank you. Thank you for the warm thoughts.
That's how Gaza is surrounded by a heavily fortified perimeter. And now you got 100,000 soldiers that are lined up right there by the Gaza Strip. So you can only imagine how Palestinians are feeling in this area, saying, wait a minute, we can't get food and water now. How long can we go like this? This is obviously a major concern for the people who live there. Now, at the same time, Israel has always been known for having the most incredible intelligence, Mossad. They've always, in many different lists, they're recognized as possibly best. They were even trained by the CIA many years ago. However, there are many questions about the Israel government, military intelligence agencies. How were they taken by surprise by such an assault, which is without recent precedent in its complexity and scale? How? How does Mossad get caught this bad by Hamas?
And I'll tell you this, I do think that this attack is an embarrassment for the Mossad. More than I think the Israeli government. I guess the Mossad is part of the Israeli government, but I think this is very, very embarrassing for the Mossad. That they basically were so, they basically called the pants down.
It's a very confusing thing that a lot of people are asking. So the initiation of rocket attacks, striking distant targets like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, the role of Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. And by the way, if you've seen the videos of the Iron Dome, how it prevents a lot of the attacks to coming through. They built this roughly around 2006 when the Hezbollahs from Lebanon were attacking. They said, we got to...
Most Band Queen says, I listen to you and say they don't want statehood. Listen to a Twitter Spaces and a Palestinian dude is talking about wanting one. And I'm over here just going, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what to think. I'll tell you right now, they've been offered statehood. The holdup is that they refuse to recognize Israel's right to exist. In other words, yeah, if we become a country of our own, we are going to try and destroy Israel. That's the holdup. So maybe, I'm sure there are plenty of them who want a state, but they want a state that has, that they want, they're not willing to accept that with the bare minimum condition of recognizing Israel's rights to not be annihilated. Upon the Horizon says, good logic is my first Rumble rant ever. Love from the ghetto. Praying for God's provision and protection for us. Psalms 121:4. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Hine lo yonum v'lo yishon shomer Yisrael is the Hebrew phrase. Hine lo yonum v'lo yishon. He does not slumber or sleep. Shomer Israel, the one who guards Israel. So
put an Iron Dome. They did. Believe it or not, the investment was only a $210 million investment, and it's been able to protect the city. So the Iron Dome, how does it work? The technology determines if rockets are headed towards a populated area, and if they are, the Iron Dome is used to fire Tamir interceptors at the incoming projectiles. Rockets that don't pose a threat are allowed to fall into empty areas. So Hamas militants' infiltration into Israel, crossing by land, sea, and air, including the use of bulldozers, hang gliders, boats, and motorbikes. Again, this is first pitch battles on Israeli soil in decades. So the militants infiltrated.
I was just reading a Rumble rant. What do you want me to do? I read it to you in English, and then it was written in English. So and he said it's in Psalms, so I just quoted it in Hebrew. That's all. I'm not trying to Jewify you. I'm just reading a Rumble rant, and I was confirming the accuracy. It's accuracy.
22 Israeli towns and army bases and took civilians and soldier hostages, many of whom they brought back to Gaza. But again, the question is how? How did the Mossad, the CIA of Israel, that's considered one of the top agencies in the world, how did they allow this to happen? How did they not know? Now, this is the part that gets a little bit tricky. Israel and Egypt have had a very good working relationship together. They're borders, they're neighbors, for 40 years. However, an Egyptian intelligence official said the Israeli government was warned about something big before the Hamas attacks. This is what the official from AP said. We have warned them an explosion of the situation is coming and very soon. Meanwhile, the office of Israeli Prime Minister.
Did I really? Did I really? I feel bad for caffeinated squirrels. I'm sorry. 18 points. Yeah, this is a reference to my locals fantasy football league, where apparently my kicker is Harrison Butker. I didn't watch the game because I saved it for later. Apparently he's been having a good game. 18 points for a kicker. My team is pretty strong. I got a pretty strong team, not going to kid you. But that's pretty funny. I'm so Jewish, I'm so leftist that I'm not Jewish. Okay? I don't know what that means, really.
Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called this claim absolutely false. Again, this is a New York Post and a Business Insider story. So now the casualty reports, obviously one is too many, but this number is the biggest since 50 years ago, is what happened in Israel. The number of people killed at Gaza, at least 830, injured 4,250, occupied West Bank killed at least 19, injured at least 110, and in Israel, more than 900 killed, injured 2,600, and 14 American citizens have been killed. So on Hamas side, they're trying to give their reasoning why they chose to attack. This is their reason. And here's
which, by the way, if they were Iranian, the Iranian Americans who were captives were rated by Biden as being worth 1.2 billion apiece, because we paid $6 billion for 5 Iranian Americans, citizens. So, yeah, 14 dead Americans.
Here's what the leader said. The leader of Hamas military wing, Mohammed Deif, said the assault was in response to the 16-year blockade of Gaza, Israeli raids inside West Bank cities over the past year, violence at Al-Aqsa, the disputed Jerusalem holy site, sacred to Jews as a Temple Mount.
There was no violence at Al-Aqsa. That's them going up there is not violence. It's
increasing attacks by settlers on Palestinians.
And just to clarify for those of you who are confused by Al-Aqsa, okay? And this is why I struggle to believe that religious Jews went up there. I don't understand much about that story, which was called to my attention yesterday. Someone said the picture looked photoshopped. It's only been reported in Arab papers. In the New York Times, which is certainly no big fan of Israel, I don't believe that they reported this. But whether that supposedly there's a picture of basically a whole bunch of Jews with psalms and their psalm and esrog and wearing prayer shawls by Al-Aqsa. This is a very, very strange thing for me for a few reasons that I didn't really have a chance to get into detail with last night with my dad. I'm going to explain this to you. What the Western Wall, sometimes called the Wailing Walls, is located in the Old City in Jerusalem. Old City is a section of Jerusalem. Okay, so named because much of its buildings and are very are prehistoric. Jerusalem stone. A lot of things in the Old City are made out of a type of stone that's referred to as Jerusalem stone because it's pretty much the only place in the world that you can get these big white stones, and it's used in construction. So there's a lot of things, even the streets, that are made out of Jerusalem stone. So the Wailing Wall is so named, if you're wondering anything about this and the religious significance to Jews as well as to Muslims. So the Wailing Wall basically is the last remnant of the Jewish temple that was destroyed in the year 79 Common Era. Okay, so basically it was standing. Jesus lived 2,000 years ago. So, and if Jesus died in the year 33 or whatever it is that he died, so he certainly would have visited the temple, which he had the opportunity to visit the temple. Everyone made pilgrimages to the temple 3 times a year, which is located in the Old City of Jerusalem. It was destroyed by the Romans in around the year 79, so like 40 years after Jesus, or I guess 46 years or so after Jesus. I believe he was 33. If I'm mistaken about, my point is to give you some time parameter here as far as when it was destroyed. The only thing that the Romans left standing was one wall, the western wall of the temple. It actually, according to Jewish legend, the western wall was built by contributions that were made from the poor, and that prophets of the day said that because they were the ones who sacrificed the most to contribute to the construction of that particular wall of the temple, that would never be destroyed. And so it is, and the way God works things is that he basically makes the area holy even after its destruction, that it's recognized being holy to the people who occupy it primarily over the next 2,000 years, that being Muslims. And they end up building a temple basically on the other side of the wall. Now, that area the temple is considered the holiest spot on earth to Jews. Always has been since the first temple was built by Solomon. It's been recognized as the holiest spot on earth. In fact, we believe that the binding of Isaac, which we call Akedas Yitzchak, happened on that mount, on that spot. It is considered so holy to Jews, to practicing Jews, that area of earth is considered so holy that we will not walk there. We won't go there because we feel it is degrading to the ground for us to trample upon it. Even while the temple was standing, not all Jews were allowed up there. In fact, a very small percentage of Jews who are regarded as being priests, who are a subset of the tribe of the Levites. So, and they're called Kohanim in Hebrew. So the priests were the ones who worked inside the temple, and they were the only ones who were allowed to go up there. And there was a section of the temple that even inside the temple that was so holy that only the high priest of that, and there's only one high priest at a time, was allowed to go in there. And he was only allowed to go in there one day a year on the day of Yom Kippur, and he would perform certain services. The reason I'm sharing this background to you, with you, is because I want you to understand the regard that Orthodox Jews have for that ground, and why it is that they will never go up there, because they feel like we're not allowed there. Like we consider it sinful to go there, that it's disrespecting God for us to go there. That is the very area that the Al-Aqsa Mosque is. You see that big gold dome in the picture? That's the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And we won't go there. Practicing religious Jews won't go there. This is why I'm very baffled by a claim that religious Jews went up there, because the whole thing where they're wearing prayer shawls and they're carrying the palms and the esrog, which is basically an Israeli type of lemon. It's a citrus fruit, which it looks and smells really nice, and it's part of our prayer services during the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. It does not make any sense that someone who's so religious that he would practice praying. He was actually engaged in praying with those particular items, would at the same time have enough disrespect for the Temple Mount that they would walk or venture to walk on in that area, because it's considered completely disrespectful to walk there. So it's almost like, to me, it sounds impossible when you tell me that hundreds of Orthodox Jews just decided that they're sufficiently Orthodox that they're actually praying with what we call a lulav and esrog. That's the term for the palm, is a lulav and an esrog. That they're sufficiently observant that they would buy these things because they're expensive. They cost, like the esrog itself, that little fruit there costs, people pay $60, $80, $100, $200 to be able to use that fruit for 1 week, because that's how valuable it is to us to have a really nice looking esrog, and it's part of our worship. So anyone who's investing that, and the lulav costs money, I mean, so it's not something that people would just find and have. It's something you actually have to go out of your way to go purchase. There's a whole thing is trying to find a good one. People spend a great deal of time, effort, and money to find what's considered by under Jewish law to be a nice esrog versus a less valued esrog, as well as for the lulav. And my point is, anyone who has that and has invested the money in it and is wearing a prayer shawl, I can't even imagine he would want to go up there to pray, because it's like, I'm going to sit here. It's basically like telling me like that while they're holding this, they stole someone's bacon and started eating it. It's like, what? Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense to me at all. I don't know. I've never met a single Jew on earth who would do something like that. So that's why when my father and I saw that story, we're like, look, this is being reported in newspapers. They've got these pictures there. It's really hard to understand. Is it impossible to happen? I guess, look, anything's possible. They certainly weren't going up there with guns and shooting at people the way they're saying, the violence in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. If anything, it sounds like they went up there to pray. I don't even understand how they would have gone up there to pray. It makes no sense. None of that makes any sense to me. The whole thing is very, very baffling. That's why that story is particularly baffling to me, and why my father was like, look, I'm not going to tell you it definitely didn't happen. Humans do whatever they're going to do, and crazy things happen. It just is difficult to understand how that could have happened. Like, really? What? Really? It's like you know what it's like? It's like basically telling me that it's like me telling you that that Rashida Tlaib was like basically, at a rally wearing a Trump 24 shirt. You're like, what? Rashida Tlaib? That woman wearing a Trump 24 shirt? How? That doesn't make any sense. That's what it's like to me. But not just one Rashida Tlaib, but 800 of them. I'm like, what? 800 Rashida Tlaibs wearing Trump 24 shirts? I don't know. What set of circumstances could possibly lead to that? That's how baffling it was to both my father and I when we were looking at that. Oh, the military industrial complex. Oh, okay. I should have gotten that. I apologize, my friend. When you said MIC before, I'm so Jewish, I'm so leftist that I'm not Jewish. I don't know what that means. It means that there are a lot of Jews who are not Jewish until they want to be Jewish. You're not that, my friend. You're Jewish. I love that you're Jewish. They are not Jewish. They are leftists. Oh, they're ginos. That's what I call them. I created the term probably before you ever joined my channel. I used to use the term all the time. I haven't used it in a while because I haven't needed to. But that someone actually used in a super chat the other day. I think just yesterday they said, "What does your father think of ginos?" And I told him, he's like, "What's a gino?" And I said, "That's Jews in name only." And he didn't know what I meant by that because I basically took rhino and I was like, I made a gino. So yeah, I can't stand ginos. I hate ginos. Make me sick. Prayers stopping by. Thank you, Jenny. Stopping by to support one of my favorite channels. Thanks, Good Logic, for keeping it real. One of the best chats. Oh, you're very kind. And they are. My chat is awesome. In Israel, if you're Christian or Muslim, you can have political position. You can have political position in Israel. This doesn't carry over to Gaza. Okay. Oh, you can't have a political opinion. Oh, you're talking about how Patrick Bet David was basically saying how they felt about the attacks. Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, who the hell is going to answer a poll saying I'm against what Hamas did? So I don't really buy that. I don't really believe that Gazans are like, oh yeah, let me tell you about how much Hamas sucks. I don't think people in Gaza are going to be saying that. Waiting for BLT under Logic's nose because I'm praying. I will tell you this: I have smelled bacon cooking. Like when I the most common time that'll happen, or like sausage links like that cooking, is when I would fly on airplanes, like on a long flight, because I'm not even around it to smell it normally. I'm not gonna kid you, it smells good. It smells tasty. I would never eat it, but it smells tasty. Your damn kicker put up more points than Mahomes. Sorry, Adrian. Yo, Adrian. She's usually in the locals sometimes. Does she hang out in the locals chat? Are you in there, Adrian? I don't see her in the locals chat. But if you're watching, Adrian, I'm going to say, yo, Adrian, I'm a kicker now. Shout out to my sliced alone. We got that. Joe, I'm praying you and your family stay safe, bro. Thank you, Manu Zircon. I appreciate that. Ask Dad to movie review of Kingdom of Heaven. I'm not going to do that to him. I would not do that to him. Sukkot is so funny. I've seen millionaires sleep in expensive tents. I'm observing. Yeah, that's what we do. There's a lot. Yeah, a lot of us sleep in not tents but shacks. Yeah, which are called a sukkah. Bacon is delicious. I'm just saying, probably is. You know what I like about you, Joe? You're an honest Jew. You love your faith. I do it. I'm very proud of it. My greatest idea ever was to start Christmas tree shop, one aisle for Mahudar, olive, some Timani trees, etc. It would make a killing. That would be. Mike using a very Jewish term there with the word Mahudar. That's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. That's an ortho type of term to use. Mahudar is Hebrew for meaning like beautified, and it's the term that we'll use for when something religious is a little bit. The two things may be kosher, but one is sort of nicer, so we call that mahudar. That's the word mahudar. That is spelled out Mehudar. So when you talk about an esrog, which is that lemon thing, if you talk about an esrog, that's a nicer one. We call it mahudar. So he's saying that he wants to start a Christmas tree. So we believe that esrog, not only certain attributes to what its appearance, but even where it comes from, would make it that if it comes from Israel versus if it was grew in a tree in Israel versus somewhere else, that's considered a nicer esrog. So that's why he's making a joke about where the trees that he's going to make Christmas trees that are going to be mahudar. Whatever. Once I explain the joke, it's lost. Love to you and your fam, Joe. Thank you so much, Liz Bots. Blue Deli says, I'm surprised your demographic are millennials. Some are. Not many. Bacon's kryptonite for vegetarians, but Jews, it depends whether the Jews are ginos, really, at the end of the day. All right.
The growth of settlements. And to be more specific, the motivating factors for the attacks, number one, Israel's occupation of the West Bank.
Watch me explain Mahudar. Yeah, thank you so much for putting me in that spot. All right. Has anyone heard from the Black Hebrew Israelites? I had someone in my chat yesterday and I noticed him talking where he said they're not even really Jews. And I was like, and it was some black guy who was like, they're not even really Jews, and I was just like, I'm not gonna even get into this. I'm not even gonna get into this. I don't know. Somehow we're Jews when it comes to Hitler. For all the bad things, we're the Jews. I don't know where the black Israelites were like screaming at the Nazis. No, we're the Jews. We didn't hear that. Stop killing those folks. They're not even really Jews. I don't know. Somehow, for all the really sucky parts, it's like those are the Jews. When it comes to like which ones Hamas wants to kill, they don't seem to be hunting down the black Israelites. I don't know. Maybe they're confused. Everyone's confused. The only ones who got it right are the black Israelites, I guess. I don't know. Everyone else is really, really confused. It's I don't understand the concept of the black Israelites. When they're with the whole "we're the real Jews," like what does that even mean?
Number 2, recent Israeli police raid on the Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Number 3, detention of thousands of Palestinians in Israeli jails. And number 4, the contentious status.
Yeah, because that's what they're marching around trying to find Palestinians.
Of the Aqsa Mosque compound.
Well,
when this
happened,
doesn't
mean the contentious mosque of the Aqsa. It just means we're mad. We're just really mad.
Benjamin Netanyahu, prime minister, comes out and says that Israel is at war after Hamas launched a devastating surprise attack on the country and vowed to exact an unprecedented price from the terror group. And many of these Israeli military reservists mobilized, and there's now speculation about a potential ground invasion of Gaza since tank units have been sent to the south. Here's some places that Israel airstrikes targeted. 1, Israel's military said it had destroyed centers that housed Hamas militants. 2, Palestinian officials said that a hospital had been hit along with multi-story buildings, homes, and mosques. 3, Gaza Health Ministry in Gaza said that at least 400 plus Palestinians had been killed, most inside Israel and the rest in the enclave. So the one chart that's being shared all over the place on social media is this one here, the historical context of the Israeli-Palestine conflict. The red represents how many Palestinians have been killed in conflict.
This is so dumb. This is like when people talk about how many black people are in prison. It's so dumb.
The deaths, and then the purple is Israel. Obviously, if you go back to 2008, look at the red versus purple, then 2009, and it continues and go to 2014.
How many Arabs were blown up by some Israeli who decided to blow himself up on a bus? How many of those happened? It's like it's such a ridiculous thing. This is how leftists tend to argue in general.
Where this was a 50-day war in 2014 sparked by the kidnapping of 3 Israeli teenagers, ended in the deaths of 73 Israelis and more than 2,000 Palestinians.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. It's because you basically say, I'm going to punch you in the face, and unless you cut the guy's arm off, he's going to punch you again. That's what ends up happening. That's what you have to do.
Most of them civilians, for Israel seeking vengeance. And then today, more people in Israel have died in this conflict than in any year in decades. And these numbers are just starting to grow. Potentially, within a week, if this thing continues, both the purple and the red could cross what the numbers were in 2014. Meaning, what this really shows, there is no peace. They're having a hard time coexisting.
Well, I think it's pretty clear there's no peace, Patrick. I think everyone got that straight. You got that straight, that right now there's no coexistence.
And it doesn't show things are getting better.
That's not profound either. I think we got that also, Patrick.
It actually shows things are getting worse based on this chart. So the uniqueness of this attack, here's what an article in New York Times says. It says, the issue came after months of profound anxiety about the cohesion of Israeli society and the readiness of its military, a crisis prompted by the far right, keyword, far right. New York Times says far right government's effort to reduce the judiciary.
Far right is New York Times speak for people we don't like. Anyone New York Times does not like is far right. Far right. It's basically I assume that they use it when they in the New York Times thesaurus. Far right is the same thing as racist or whatever. It's just as uncomfortable as you are definitely, if you're watching this show and you're not screaming at me, and your name isn't Cynthia or Robin, you almost certainly there's one or two others. You're almost certainly would be deemed far right. I'm going to pull this up right away. And in fact, Pam, Now that guy looks like an Albanian, Italian, Iraqi, Kuwaiti, Saudi to me. I thought he was Israeli. Pam, I'm doing this for you. I'm giving you this. Boom. That was my way of saying thank you to you. I missed your PayPal yesterday, but I saw it afterwards. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to you and say thank you so very much. You're really sweet and considerate. Yashata Muslim is a Muslim. I know he plays a pseudo-Christian game, but they are allowed to lie. You know what should have happened 9/12/01? People like him went back home. Maybe he is a Muslim. My father yesterday was talking about, I don't know about the name Beit David. It doesn't sound like a Muslim name. My father yesterday was talking about how a lot of Muslims took Jewish names in order to get Israeli girls to go out with them and marry them ultimately. 2 Rumble rants. Oh, thank you for calling that to my attention. I appreciate you calling that to my attention. Thank you. Organic says Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir on Tuesday visited the Jerusalem compound known as the Temple Mount by Jews and the Haram al-Sharif, or Noble Sanctuary, by Muslims. Google. Okay. That's different than 800 people going there. That's very weird that he went there. I was explaining to you, and you're saying it was a big mess. I wouldn't want any Israelis going up. Honestly, if you ask me my opinion, I don't want anyone should be going there. I don't want Muslims going there because I consider it holy ground. From a religious perspective, I don't want any humans walking on that earth. I understand there's a mosque there. I understand that the Israelis, allowed the Muslims to go up there and to visit the Al-Aqsa Mosque. When they first captured it in 1967, there was a whole dispute about what they should do with that area, who they should allow up there. And they basically said, this is a way that we should, show our good faith by allowing Arabs to go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So rather than just banning it altogether, they basically said, we're going to show our good faith by allowing them to go there. A lot of people on the far right said, you shouldn't do that. It's a violation of Jewish law to allow anyone up there. So I don't understand Itamar Ben-Gvir. I don't know his level of religiosity or anything like that. I don't understand that given the context of everything I was explaining before. Most Band Queen asked me, do I think people are overreacting to the call for global jihad coming to tomorrow? New York City is putting all their officers on duty tomorrow. No day off for anyone, apparently. Do I think? No, I don't think it's an overreaction to be protecting from that. It wouldn't be shocking to think of, a couple of incidents that could happen. Does that mean it's going to happen? We pray not. I don't know. So it's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's for sure. So Monkin Train says Patrick Ben-David is Persian. I initially thought he was Jewish. See, you thought like me. He's a Christian and ran from Iran on today's podcast. He seemed very pro-Israel to me. Could be. I know the history. It is old. That this isn't right. I'm not sure which history you're referring to, but yeah.
Sherry's power. And the New York Times article continues, the attacks also came on the holiday of the Simchat Torah and nearly...
Okay, so he's not Israeli. He's definitely not Israeli. He's not faking that because no Israeli would have read that as Simchat Torah. It was said the way I would say, which is Simchat Torah. So he's either really faking that really well or he's really not Israeli because Simchat Torah means the joy. Simcha means joy. And when they put the AT on the end instead of just an AH, that means the joy of. It's the joy of Torah. So yeah, they would say Simchat Torah.
50 years to the day since the Israeli authorities were caught off guard when invading forces from Egypt and Syria set off the start of the Yom Kippur War. The part that got interesting is when all of a sudden Wall Street Journal wrote an article talking about how Iran was involved with plotting the attack on Israel. And if you look at this article here, Iran has long been a supporter of Hamas and Hezbollah, two Palestinian Lebanese militant groups that are designated as terrorist organizations by the United States and Israel. Think about Hezbollah and Hamas, just think ISIS. Okay, if you know ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas.
I'm gonna give you one of these. Won't even eat bacon. Oh, well, I don't think are you saying Patrick Bet David won't eat bacon because he's like not sufficiently Christian? Is that what your point is? I don't know. I certainly won't eat bacon, but that's one area that Jews and Muslims agree. So if your good logic is your dad, grand logic, and the next one learning logic. No, he's great logic. That's what everyone calls him. PB is also U.S. Army veteran, 101 Airborne Motor. T. Oh, okay, cool. I wonder if the Azov have said who they support. That was funny.
Similar mindsets. Iran has been
funny.
setting aside other regional conflicts, such as its open feud with Saudi Arabia and Yemen, to focus on
Thank you, Equin DG, for the generous support.
coordinating financing and arming militias antagonistic to Israel. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. You know the $6 billion that U.S., unfreeze to give to Iran in exchange to a political prisoner. Do you know when that report, the news was reported to the rest of us? It was on 9/11, which is kind of weird, right? It's roughly a month ago when this happens. Then former Speaker Kevin McCarthy is calling on President Biden to refreeze the $6 billion in Iranian funds in the wake of the recent attacks on Israel by Hamas. We're thinking, yeah, let's work with these guys and let's give them the $6 billion and give us the political prisoners. Everything's going to be great. Then you see them in the parliament, in Iran, bad America, death upon America. After we just gave you the $6 billion, kind of weird, the timing of this whole thing. But let's continue here. In a lengthy address laying out a 5-step plan to address the escalating conflict in Israel, McCarthy took aim at Biden administration for its prisoner swap with Iran and his decision to unfreeze $6 billion in frozen Iranian funds in exchange for freedom of 5 wrongfully detained American citizens. $6 billion for 5 unwrongfully arrests on U.S. citizens. So here's what's a lot.
The $6 billion was kind of insane. I covered that when it happened. Most Band Queen says, just seems like we have heard them make these jihad calls before. Nothing ever came of it. I plan on going to the store as per usual and living my life, but some people are very scared. I plan on doing that also.
People are saying the $6 billion has become a rallying cry. Again, this is the Hill for critics of the Biden administration in the wake of attack on Israel. Many Republicans say that the move freed up resources for Iran's military spending and support of terrorism. Then next thing you know, Secretary Anthony Blinken came out pushing back saying no. All the Iranian criticism, he emphasized that not a single dollar has been spent from the funds that have been unfrozen for the prisoner swap. Blinken reiterated that the funds were to be used only for food, medicine, and other humanitarian goods. Now,
yeah, just because people say that, I mean, that's the stupid. I don't think Iran could figure out how to spend $6 billion on food and humanitarian.
Obviously, a lot of people don't believe this.
Yeah.
And here's where the news comes from WSJ, Wall Street Journal. Iranian security officials helped Hamas plan the attack on Israel and gave the green light for the assault at a meeting in Beirut just last Monday. Even officers of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, have worked with Hamas since August to devise the air, land, and sea incursions.
I believe that Iran is probably behind these attacks. I still don't want America to invade Iran over this. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a good call. I just don't. Wow, look at you, brother. Dude! Of course I support you in your fold. You help me because you're honest. You don't know me, but you're sort of still my friend. Hey, friend. Because you're a solid person, an honest person, a good person. I need that in my life. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad I can be there for you. All right. And I appreciate that. Grifty says he's openly a Christian convert. Family fled the Shah. Oh. I will tell you this. I heard about Brigitte Ben Gabriel's the first one who I ever heard talking about how she grew up in, I think, Lebanon. And she was talking about how Muslims, that she's Christian. And she grew up in Lebanon. And because of her Christian faith, that she and her family were badly persecuted for their beliefs and basically under threat of dying all the time. So, yeah. Some folks take religion very seriously.
So, what do you think Iran does? You think Iran comes out and says they were part of it? You think they're denying it? Well, the article continues and says Iran has denied any involvement in the attack, but there's a growing consensus amongst experts that Iran played a significant role in planning and executing the attack. And evidence of Iran's involvement includes the meeting in Beirut, the fact that the attack was coordinated with other Iran-backed militant groups, and the use of sophisticated weapons and tactics that are beyond Hamas's capabilities.
That's an interesting thought that I hadn't considered. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what makes something beyond Hamas's capabilities. You see, this is something that I sort of feel as if like I really know I don't know how a civilian would know what is beyond this group's capabilities versus being beyond the different groups' capabilities. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, okay, fine. I understand that Iran is much closer to a nuclear weapon, which is a significant very significant thing. I mean, my father was telling me on the phone, he called me today and he was like, you know, and we were having a whole discussion about American invading Iran. And he's a believer. He was saying that he believes that, you know, there's talk that they are developing an intercontinental way of delivering nuclear weapons, which means that they could, in theory, he's like, if they dropped a mushroom cloud over Chicago, it would like basically destroy. You don't even need to. He's like, you don't even need to hit the territory because it would wipe out all electronics. He's like, people would not be able to like access money, buy food, get basic needs for like thousands of square miles. That's a scary thing. And I was like, okay, so that would be a reason in theory to go after Iran that has nothing to do with what happened this past weekend. It's got nothing to do with Israel. So look, if that's in Americans' interests, that's in America's interest. That's completely different than saying because of something related to the attack from Gaza. That's two totally separate things. So, and I don't know, that might be true. Let's talk to Gad Saad. He's Jewish and fled Lebanon. I'd love to get him on. Do you think there's any way I'm going to get Gad Saad on here? I got to get Viva size before I can get Gad Saad. And nothing to do with Biden giving Iran $6 billion recently. Nope. No way, no how. Nothing to do with that. Nothing at all. It's a crazy coincidence. I don't know why they think they can just refreeze it in 2 seconds. Where is that $6 billion? Is it in Switzerland? Like, how did they freeze in the first place? And I guess maybe it's not so easy to move $6 billion. I just can't believe that all of it's still there. Like once it's when something is unfrozen, when assets are unfrozen, it's not like they leave it sitting there forever. He's not talking right now about how the EMP works. It would cause problems, but it isn't exactly how it works. I know because this is what I do. Oh, is it? Okay. I always thought an EMP is something that could make America or Israel or any Western country completely susceptible to like massive terrorist attack. To me, I would think that an EMP is almost better than a nuclear weapon just because it would shut down anything.
So Iran's backing of a coordinated group of Arab militias is ominous for Israel. And on top of that, in the past, in previous conflicts, the Soviet Union was the ultimate patron of Israel's Arab enemies and was always able to pressure them to reach some type of accommodation or recognize a red line. So obviously this is a little.
And that's an interesting thing, which you may not be familiar with this. This is something that used to come up very frequently in the UN, that Russia was one of the reasons that Israel was routinely cited and sanctioned by the UN for purported atrocities, as if they were worse than like people who were like literally like, you know, African nations that were butchering people, or Iran, where you would see like, you know, stonings of a woman who you know created who was accused of infidelity and terrible human abuses, and they never get sanctioned. But Israel, it's like, you know, if they give a speeding ticket to someone, they seem to get sanctioned by the UN. Strategically, just for the UN was basically used as a tool and long used to the point that it basically became like worthless. that it was a tool for basically trying to bludgeon America, or by extension Israel, because of the relationship between Israel and the United States. So Russia, out of resentment for America, basically would continually be joining with Arab nations in condemning Israel for this, condemning Israel for that, condemning on and on and on. 20 years ago, I used to hear about this all the time. I don't know if I hear less about it now because I became so completely disinterested in anything any opinion the UN has to expresses, or because they actually got tired of doing them themselves and they don't really do it much anymore. But entry required, says Joe. Remember the USS battleships tossing VW bug-sized shells into southern Lebanon? Too bad they're mothballed now. Yeah. Plan for a year. Why does money last week help? That's a fair question. That is a fair question, and that's why. I have a similar thought. I think that's a really, really good question. Actually, if they're supposedly planning for a year, why do they need the $6 billion? Unless they're planning it for when they would get access to money. It's possible, but how? If the $6 billion was released, I think it could be that like maybe Iran only greenlit it after they got the $6 billion because they were worried that if we don't get our hands on the money first, we'll never get it because we're going to be blamed. I don't know. Without saying enough, it's old enough that a lot of it's hardened, not that it wouldn't be ugly. But it isn't as bad as people think it would be. Oh, you're saying a lot of our infrastructure is hardened against EMPs? That's what I'm taking from this super chat. That makes me feel a little better.
A bit concerning because down the street from here, literally half a mile away from here, there was protesting, literally in the middle of a street. Okay, hundreds of people out here protesting across the country. Some people are worried, is this going to impact people in America? Is it safe? Is this the time to kind of not feel that safe going out with your family and your kids? Are they going to calm this thing down?
See, one of the reasons, most Band Queen and a few people were talking about, in case you missed it, so basically the Hamas was calling for people to show their solidarity with Hamas by engaging in terrorist attacks tomorrow. So this has caused a lot of fear that there is going to be terrorist attacks. One of the reasons I don't know that it's a legitimate concern is because I think that right here and right now, I don't believe, given the current political climate, that Hamas genuinely wants to stoke American ire by engaging in a terrorist activity in America specifically. Think to yourself the kickback that would come. God forbid, if there was like 4 or 5 terrorist attacks by people supporting Hamas or anti-Israel that happened in the United States tomorrow. God forbid. Imagine the impact that could have on Gaza, on Persia, on Iran, and the flames that would be stoked of now they're attacking America. And it could be for them like the reaction to 9/11, that it's basically there are enough people, certainly like the Nikki Haley's of the world, are screaming that we need to go after Iran, and Lindsey Graham is saying we need to go after Iran. So if you have 3 terrorists blow themselves up in various places across this country in the name of Hamas, they'll be joined by tens of millions more saying we need to go destroy these evil people. And I think they're politically savvy enough to recognize that. And that's one reason that I feel fairly confident that that might be public bluster that's not intended to actually be carried out. If that makes sense. I'm basically relying on Hamas's political savvy in recognizing that if this was actually carried out in America, that the blowback that Hamas would face as a result of this would utterly decimate them, because basically they would become the next Iraq. And I don't think their leadership wants to be Saddam Hussein. So that's why I don't think And I certainly don't think that Iran wants to see something like that happen. So that's why I don't really see it happening. And I pray that that's not me just having my hope glasses on, rather than it, being an accurate expectation. So, but that's one of the reasons most band Queen that I'm not really that worried about it, because I sort of feel like they don't really want to mess with that. Shipwreck is now a monthly supporter in my my Rumble Rank ghetto. Let me check out my locals ghetto. My locals ghetto is thriving. Awesome. Maybe a cyber attack at the same time, skills Hamas doesn't have. Yeah. And I think that's why people are looking to Iran. Conflict is older than me. I want Israel to end it. The only way for it to end, tell me how I'm wrong. If you think I'm wrong, if someone is determined this must end, the only way, there's only two possibilities for how to end. Is literally kill them all or occupy them all, at the very least. That's the only way for it to end. If you want to say, I don't want it to have any more bloodshed for whatever, you basically, that's it. That's your two choices. And if Israel occupies, within 6 months, there'll be so much clamor against them about the atrocities, abuses, and civil rights abuses, and they'll be facing daily harangues from the left, and Free Palestine movement will surge because of all the cries about the inhumane IDF and their occupation of Gaza. So it's kind of a lose-lose. It seems like Ukraine is wrapping up. So our government is on to the next one. Everyone's so Ukraine is so 2022. I'm sure they're just looking for the excuse the empire goes marching on. Yeah, it definitely could be. Beef bacon, good. Turkey bacon is trash. Is it? All right. Shaul, you heard that Scalise dropped from speaker race? Did he really? He gave up? He gave up? I was thinking about covering it. I was looking at it like 3 hours ago, and it seemed like he was still hopeful and trying and fighting for his speakership. See, the thing is, like, this is the thing that I'm concerned about from the American political perspective, is that with all of this stuff happening in the Middle East, the lack of a speaker, there's a lot more focus, I think, on the lack of a speaker, and that seems like more of a necessary thing. I don't know why, really. I can't really explain to you why. You'd be like, well, why do we need to have a speaker just because there's fighting in the Middle East? And I'd be like, I don't know. Just people would just sort of feel like you need to have congressional leadership, and you can't really have it without a Speaker of the House. My boy, England DG. And Michael Burke, will we have outages? Sure. It's not without backup. I don't want to get into it, but we base our whole financial system on tech. I think so. England DG, in case you joined late, and if you did, you really need to like and subscribe now, because otherwise, when will that happen? So make sure you hit like and subscribe. So England DG was basically saying that he works in this industry, and he was talking about how, EMPs, which is, I think, an electromagnetic pulse that could theoretically knock out electricity, and people speculate about the impact that would have on our defense systems, or any Western country's defense systems, or basically anyone who's beyond the Stone Age's defense systems. So, or not just defense systems, but your ability for financial, for people to be able to get money, buy food, buy gas, live, communicate by a cell phone, anything would be knocked out with an EMP. So that does seem like a very scary thing. And he's basically saying that our systems are not as susceptible to an EMP attack as they maybe were 10 years ago. And I hope he's right. He claims to have the knowledge. And he certainly sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I don't claim any knowledge on that. I don't know at all. If you think they're so dumb that there isn't backups, right. I mean, the question is, how would a backup? I don't know how a backup works. I don't know how an EMP works. You could have a backup to stop from an EMP attack. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't I don't even know what that would mean, but no, I don't think I would if it dawned on me, I assume it dawned on others that hey, maybe we need to have a system in place in case, God forbid. What's worse, Iran getting the bomb or bombing Iran? By that logic, you should blow up anyone who smells hostile. Ever. Anyone who ever smells hostile, just blow them up. You sort of need to like draw your line as to like what is going to draw out our sword, especially when you have the responsibility of carrying the biggest sword on the planet. You can't just be like, well, this person seems like a potential threat, so let's blow them up. Because by that logic, basically, we'll end up wiping out the entire world. I mean, that's the logic that in every sci-fi horror movie, futuristic horror movie, that the robots are always blowing everyone up because people are so evil. So they basically have to stop evil, so they're blowing up, people because they're evil. If you're going to basically say, there sort of needs to be something that becomes the impetus. I think that's my perspective on it. I could be wrong. I do. That's all I say. All right. I believe you.
Down. It doesn't look like it is. One side is saying, if you keep bombing us, this is what Hamas is saying, we're going to have to kill each hostage, and we're going to show it on the internet so people can see that. Just think about like a statement like that being made. And Israel saying, look, we're not negotiating with terrorists. And on the Israel side, there's two sides. One side saying, look, the left, the liberals are saying, hey, find a way to negotiate. The other side's like, we're not going to negotiate with terrorists. These guys are saying they're going to kill your kids. And you want us to sit there and negotiate? You believe these guys? You believe it? Whether we say anything or not, they're not going to do it. Now, again, whichever side you lean on, that's what's being done today. So how is America and Saudi and others looking at this? And do people trust that actually peace will be able to become a reality, or we don't know yet? But here's what happened. There's been international reactions, including President Biden's support for Israel. Arab nations, including Saudi Arabia, are calling for de-escalation, but avoid blaming Hamas. They're still being supportive of Hamas. They're not blaming Hamas. They're just saying, we want this thing to be done, and we are making a lot of progress with Israel, but we just want to make sure everything's going to be good with everybody. So this is kind of tricky because, Biden just recently, his top aides were trying to push Saudi Arabia to normalize diplomatic relations with Israel. Yet Saudi Arabia has never recognized a Jewish state out of solidarity with Palestinians, but had seemed ready to change its policy. You think this event's going to help Saudi be even more comfortable to want to do it now? Or you think they're going to say, whoa, we got to back off this one here. This is not a good look with us and Hamas and our relationships there. So the question, can it get worse? Well, the risk of a wider regional conflict involving Hezbollah, this is New York Times article, the Lebanese Shiite militant organization that fought a war with Israel in 2006. This is Hezbollah coming from Lebanon. This will be on the northern side. In a statement, Hezbollah said it was closely following the important developments in the Palestinian situation with great interest. What that means, no one knows.
I was just saying that. I was just asking myself that. What the hell does that even mean? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Well, we're following with great interest. You know what? So, hi, I'm Good Logic, and I'm following this story with great interest as well. I'm following with great interest. I don't know what that means. And the difference between me and Hezbollah is you can super chat me. Can't super chat Hezbollah, but I am following with great interest. Me and Hezbollah. Like this. We're both following this story with great interest. I don't know what that means. No one knows what that means. I don't know.
Language. So now United Nations that is trying to play a role of a peace, let's de-escalate, let's not. This is their assessment of what they're thinking is going on.
Alien DG is saying it isn't an invalid concern. I get it. Sorry for being a bit mean about this. I didn't think you were mean. This is literally what I do. I can't and won't explain. It's okay. Our financial systems are okay. All right. Well, that's reassuring. I'm gonna tell my dad the next time he brings up potential EMP attack. I'm gonna be like, look, a guy in my chat. I know this sounds quick, Dad. This is the conversation I can assure you is gonna go. I'll be like, Dad, I can't explain to you how I know this. There's this guy in my chat. And he seemed really compelling when he said that he works in this industry and our financial sector is safe from an EMP attack. He'll be like, a guy in your chat? And I'm not trying to be disparaging. I'm just like, I don't know how to like, I don't know. And I understand that, like, if someone works in the military, let's say, they can't necessarily divulge who and what they are. I get that. But you're saying you'd be glad to tell him how he's wrong. Next time I have him back on here, just remind me about the conversation and walk him through it. He'll probably be on here more now because I sort of use him as like my Middle East consultant. And obviously, there's a lot more stories that we can anticipate engaging the Middle East. So, like, when everything is happening with Trump trials and stuff like that, no one's talking about the Middle East. No one cares about that. So my dad's like, my father would come to me and he'd be like, that Syria is had like an uprising of 10,000 people were in Damascus who were complaining about housing shortages. And I'm like, no one cares. No one cares. I just made up the story, but I'm saying he's like starts telling me stories, that al-Zawahiri said, made an announcement that he's, that the sword of Islam is going to reach across the Levant. I'll be like, no one cares. I can't. I was like, because he'll talk to me about like coming on, and I'm happy to have him on. I was like, okay, so what topic we can talk about? But but now I expect he'll be back more. Unfortunately, I wish there was nothing happening in the Middle East. My dad's friend is an electrical engineer. He explained through the use of Faraday cages and redundancy IoT protect from similar solar activity EMP as BS. Oh, he did seem excited by the flamethrowers. he's like they had these. The way he's explaining it, what I loved about it when he was explaining it is like he's basically explaining it as if people never heard of flamethrowers before. He'd be like, they have these phones where it's like, you can actually be walking on the street and calling people. And like, I love you, Dad. You're awesome. He's great. But I will tell you, like, on the other side of it, he's like, he's like reading through like some comic that's referencing nations that have been gone for 6 centuries. It's like, oh yeah, they were wiped out in 1127, and I'll be like, and I'll sort of like poke him, and he has no idea I'm joking. Like, he has no idea I'm joking. I'll be like, you sure, Dad? I'm pretty sure it was 1131. It'll be some nation I never heard of in my life. Like, never heard of them. So just to like throw at him that I think he's off by like 3 years about some incident which happened with somebody. And that's basically been the nature of my conversations with my dad for decades. Pam Ronning, I think, was asking, she's like, I really wonder what conversations were like around the dinner table with you. Because what would happen is this is exactly what would happen. You actually saw a little snippet of it. You just were missing the part because my mom wasn't, my mom passed, she wasn't there. Where it's like, my dad will be like, he'd be like, well, the Mameluke people, they were wiped out by the Crusaders in 1263. And I'd be like, and I won't know what the heck he's talking about. And I'll just be like, I thought it was the Moors. Wasn't that like in 1186? And I'll say it with the utmost sincerity. And he'd be like, no, they're like on the other side. And my mother would interject with like, Harris, he's joking. My father would never go. So you actually saw me do it last night. If there's a little moment there, very early on, where that moment happened yesterday. But yeah. Where was I? Joe, Hamas demands that all Jews are killed and leftists ask Israel to meet them halfway. Yeah, that's a pretty old joke. I can't talk to him on that, but I do know what it's done to solidify systems. I really can't and won't get into it, but you use debit cards. Amazing how that works. Wonder how. Okay. Oh yeah, remind you of Sean Connery and Indiana Jones. That's why I changed the name of my show to like Indiana Jones. Dun 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 dun. Steven Spielberg will be slapping my show every night. I too lament the demise of the Sogdians. Me too. Oh my gosh! Ever since the Sogdians are gone, the world just hasn't been the same. You should listen to your dad more. I ignore mine too. I think it's pretty clear that I love my dad. So, all right, let's get back into this.
United Nations peacekeeping forces in southern Lebanon said that the situation on the Lebanese-Israeli border was volatile but stable after Hezbollah and Israeli exchanged artillery.
It's volatile but stable. Decaffeinated coffee. It stimulates you but relaxes you. What are you reading to us, BBD? What is this? It's it's volatile. It's fiery but mostly peaceful. Volatile but stable. Okay.
And rocket fire earlier in the day. Volatile but stable? Really? I mean, you either believe UN or you don't, but here's the reality of it. If you look at the charter, Hamas charter, that they had in 1988, they just updated it in 2017 and kind of cleaned it up 6 years ago. But the one thing everybody talks about is, what is your core beliefs? What do you really believe in? You can read the entire charter. It's not hard to find on the internet. But there's a couple things in there that's important for you to look at, and here's what it is. Pretty much the premise of the document.
Yeah, I pointed that out. I was like, New York Times hasn't found a breathing Israeli that they've liked in a really long time.
And that's 36 article can be summarized as falling within the four main themes. Number one, the complete destruction of Israel. This is, again, Hamas. The complete destruction of Israel as an essential condition for the liberation of Palestine and the establishment of a theocratic state based on Islamic law.
There you go. That's basically, it's a very simple ask. People like making such a big deal. It's a very simple thing. Complete destruction of Israel, Islamic State, rooted in Sharia law. Because if it's not Sharia law, we're still going to keep killing a lot of people, even after the Israelis are dead. It's a very bare minimum ask there. It's a very bare minimum. People becoming so like
Sharia law. This is in their charter.
No.
1988.
No,
not too long ago.
I don't have Israeli citizenship. I was born in this country. No. My father didn't even go to Israel for the first time until I was 8 years old. And my mother and I went like a few weeks after he got there and joined him there for the summer. Did New York Times really cover up the Holocaust? I don't know.
Just roughly 35 years ago is what they said. Number two, the need for both unrestrained and unceasing holy war, jihad, to attain the above objective, again, to annihilate Israel pretty much off the face of the planet. Number three, the deliberate disdain for and dismissal of any negotiated resolution or political settlements of Jewish and Muslim claims to the Holy Land. And number four, the reinforcement of historical anti-Semitic tropes and calumnies married to sinister conspiracy theories.
That's the original thing. Look, and it's like, I mean, this is their charter. This is the charter. We're not going to reestablish this Palestinian state until we abolish Israel, wipe out the Jews, and then after that happens, we need to have a lot of anti-Semitic memes go out there also. That's a very important part of it, because if we don't get the memes, we're not satisfied. That's not enough. It's not just the destruction, but like everyone has to basically believe in hating Jews in order for us to our claims to be met. You only meet 3 out of 4 of them. No, we're not good. Got to get rid of all the settlements, get rid of the states, have Sharia law. But we didn't end up getting the anti-Semitic memes. No, we're still at war. We're still at jihad. We're still going. I'm boycotting hummus and shows. You tell them.
So now here's what's interesting. That article I just read you was from The Atlantic. And the title of The Atlantic says, when Hamas tells you who they are, believe them. So some people may say, wait a minute. Does Israel sit there and say, let's eliminate?
Do a Last Crusade. I'm gonna, one day I think I'm gonna name his visit that episode. I'll call it, Great Logic and the Last Crusade.
Palestine, Palestinians, and Hamas off the face of the earth. You've never heard Israel say that. By the way, Israel could if they wanted to. They have one of the strongest militaries. They're not doing that. Why are they not doing that? Maybe that's not, part of what they want to do. But for Hamas, they're not even, sitting there trying to hide it. Here's who we are. Here's what we want to do. Here's what we're going after. Having said that,
I'm going to tell you this. If you are a follower of this show and you're I started taking my show and hiding them behind a paywall. You can find it on Rumble. Speaking of which, I haven't looked at Rumble in a minute. You can find it on Rumble, but because all my shows end up going there. But I did a show a year and a half ago or so where I was covering this guy, Mike. I think it's Mike Berman, David Berman. I don't know, somebody from MSNBC, who was yelling about and Marjorie Taylor Greene when she referred to Vax paperwork as being like a yellow star. And this guy went nuts. So I'm Jewish and this is like a whole anti-Semitic. How dare you do this? And I spent an episode blasting this guy. I mean, blasting him. Because first and foremost, he is Jewish, but under Jewish law, he cannot even marry a Jew because he did a whole episode about how he traced his family genealogy and learned that he is a mamzer, which is the Hebrew word for a bastard, what Americans would call a bastard, in that his great grandfather, some Espinoza or Spinoza, I don't know if it's Espinoza or Spinoza, it was like recorded in like Dutch history that their progeny came from an affair, which under Jewish law meant that he was a mamzer. I was like, this guy he's sitting here screaming about his Jewishness. He's throwing on his big cape with a big red cape with a J on the back of it, standing up for the Jews against Marjorie Taylor Greene. And that's where I think I invented the term Gino. I was like, you people who don't know anything about being a Jew, no one knows that you're a Jew. I mean, I guess Berman is at least a moderately Jewish name, but especially the ones who don't even have a Jewish name, who are sitting there saying, basking in their Jewishness only when it's an opportunity to yell about anti-Semitism. You make me sick. I was going on and on about Jews who have zero connection to Judaism unless it's time to scream about anti-Semitism, and raise the banner, and usually in scenarios where there's zero anti-Semitism. Like zero, like Marjorie Taylor Greene there, where her point was that she was basically saying that we're being oppressed and ostracized. And I actually made the point with that particular story that I felt that it was a badge of honor that she says, when you think of people who are oppressed, it's basically European Jews at the start of the World War, because they're the ones who had to wear the yellow star. So I was like, I'm kind of flattered that when people think of the mark of what does it mean to be truly oppressed, that's sort of a legacy that's what the Jewish star refers to. I didn't look at that as being insulting. I looked at it as almost complimentary. And this guy who's a Gino is sitting here and isn't even really Jewish, like under like Jewish law as far as being able to marry a Jew. He sort of is a different class of and he can't even, he and his kids, and goes on forever, like all his offspring, for grandchildren, great-grandchildren, are classified and recorded as being like this sort of weird state of Jew where, like, a Christian who converts to Judaism properly, yeah, you know what? My kids could marry that person, but not if they're mamzer, because that's how tainted their blood is considered. I was like, this guy, unbelievable. So I have a big issue with folks who throw on the big Jew cape And the only way you know it is when they're wearing the Jew cape. Otherwise, you have no way of knowing that they're Jewish. But when it's time to scream out anti-Semitism, the Jew cape comes out. Those are your ginos. Jews in name only. I'm losing my mind. This is so funny. Yeah. Edward Cullen says, we must understand Hamas. They cannot be bargained with. They cannot be reasoned with, and they absolutely will not stop until every Jew is dead. Oh, I agree with you. I think they're pretty bad. I think they're pretty bad people. That's my take on it as well. Moms, are you sure you can't do anything with Lumdus? I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what Lumdus is, but I don't know in this context. Shipwreck 13 says, a sticky situation this one is. I keep thinking about books Lucifer Effect, Art of War, and The Prince. EMP discharge power versus how much of a load shielding can handle. I never read any of those books. I heard of Art of War, not The Prince or Lucifer Effect. So I feel ignorant right now. I'm not going to kid you. I'm feeling kind of ignorant. Oh, look at me pulling this over here and confusing you guys as to what was happening. I actually gave you a backstage look without even realizing I was doing it. Okay. Let's get it. Do adult men who convert to Judaism have to be, I think you mean circumcised? And the answer to that is yep. Ryan Kuhn, new member. This is definitely not your first tour of duty here. So welcome back, Ryan Kuhn, member of The Following. The Following is not a cult type of cult at all. Most people who join the Following in the hopes that they are joining a cult are disappointed to learn how uncult-like this cult is. There's no leader of The Following. I'm not the leader of The Following. I'm just a follower, just like you. So don't blame me if you're disappointed in the level of cult-leadness of The Following. Well, welcome aboard, my brother. Yeah, and you now can go check up and find on YouTube that video. I don't know if I called it Gino. I don't know if I called it Berman or something like that, but it would have been around it would have probably been, I would estimate it was in one of my much earlier shows. Like I know I filmed it before I moved down into this room when I was working in my attic, which was the very early days. The video would likely have under 300 views. I'd be shocked if it has 300 views. So
there's also a group of people that are saying maybe Israel allowed for part of this to happen so the world would back them up to go destroy and annihilate Hamas, all of the, Gaza Strip, all of that.
Now I would assume that Israel has a clue how to engage in PR, which they've never displayed that. Never displayed that.
Because now people like Nikki Haley are saying, go get them. Go do this. The rhinos or the establishment and Lindsey Graham and, all these guys. Yeah, Iran's getting involved. Let's go after Iran. There's a lot of Iranians that are saying, the civilians are saying, no, we don't have a problem. This is not us. This is our government that's doing this. Anyways, the tipping point of how ugly this thing could get, it could get very, very ugly in many ways. So when you take a deeper dive and you see what the history of it is, now you kind of have an idea what the events been taking place and a bit of the history. Obviously, we can go into this for hours, but this gives you a bit of an idea on what's going on there. Tragic, heartbreaking. As a kid, I lived there. I posted a picture the other day online of my sister and I when I was 7 years old. And my sister texts this to me and she says, do you look at this picture? Do you see what I see? I'm like, no, I don't. She says, look at the windows. I'm like, wow. I always tell the story of how my dad used to tape the windows in Iran. So when we would get bombed, the glass wouldn't shatter all over us. But finally, we have a picture. My sister texted it to me yesterday to show it that highlights what it was like as a kid living in Iran when war was going on between Iran and Iraq. And we would drive in the freeways. You're like, crazy. That's the house I used to play. That's the park I used to play. Explosion everywhere. It's extremely scary. I don't pray it on anybody, including my enemy.
That's crazy.
But, very weird. First, we have Ukraine, Russia. Then we have the way we left Afghanistan. Then we have Hamas using the weapons that we left in Afghanistan to go attack Israelis. Very wild, tragic what's going on. That's the update for now. If you want to go a little bit deeper on this, we had Roseanne Barr. If you know Roseanne Barr, the comedian, she was on the podcast. recently, and we got deeper into this topic. She gave her.
All right. So there you go. I don't really look at Roseanne Barr as being some sort of brilliant political analyst, but maybe she is. I don't know. The prince is Machiavelli, not buying the Momser. I didn't make up that he was Momser. He did a whole special. I found a video of him doing some sort of personal retrospective where he goes on a genealogy quest and looks through records and learns that his great-great-great-great-grandfather was a Momser. So I didn't make that up. I think Israel should destroy Hamas. I'm tired of it. It's older than me, but I know what will happen. They will come to the West, and we will accept them and pretend they were put upon. That's sadly, I don't think they're going to come to the West. I think that their whole objective is to be exactly where they are. So I don't think they're going to come here. But, like, I don't know. Chat as Cedar Rose, member for 3 months. Woohoo! Cha-ching. Chat is love. Chat is life. All hail chat. It is true. I love my chat. You guys are awesome. Joe, stop using Chrome. At least use a Brave browser. I've never even tried a Brave browser. I don't even know what a Brave browser is. I mean, I heard of it. I've never once tried it. People really struggle to come to terms with Hamas attitude because it's utterly alien to the Western Judeo-Christian view. They need to grow up. And I think they go into denial about how sincere they are about it. Like, nah, they don't really mean it. They don't really mean it. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they do. I'm pretty sure they do. I don't know. Butchered bodies. I kind of think they mean it. That's just my take. That's my take. I kind of think they mean it. Beverly Alford, your dad made a comment last night explaining the difference between Hamas and Jews. They venerate their dead sons while Jews cry over theirs. Could you accurately repeat it for me? I want to save it. I think you just said it. I don't know what you want me to repeat. Oh, you want me to save a clip of me saying it? All right. I mean, my dad said it better than I did, but I can. Yeah. Difference between Hamas and Jews is that Hamas venerates their dead sons while the Jews mourn the loss of theirs. Monk in Training says Brave browser is Chrome but better. Use Brave. All right, I'll try it out. I didn't even get to Tucker Carlson yet. I did not expect to spend an hour and 45 minutes on what was that? Oh, my good friend, you're way too kind to me tonight. Tonight's show is sponsored by England DG. In fact, I'm supposed to do it again. To be fair, I live in a Jewish area. My house is next to a Jewish school. I'm a Catholic. I'm Native American legally, but I love my neighbors Jews. I would term for the trendy Jews, bacon Jews. Now I realize that isn't a great term, but you know. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I've heard that term before, bacon. I definitely think I've heard that. But yeah, I really appreciate the significant support that you gave the show tonight. So I'll rename this show the England DG EMP show. All right. Let me make sure what happened was this popped out at a bad place. That's how everything went nuts before. I want to make sure I was trying to jump around between. I was jumping. Triggered says locals following your every word, yet you ignore us again. We also lie. I haven't been ignoring you. I haven't been ignoring you at all. I started tonight's show praising locals and the diggers of locals. The people who are in locals refer themselves as diggers. So I don't believe that England DG is Liz Warren. No. There's more than one Native. First of all, he can't be Liz Warren because England DG is a Native American. Hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah. All right, let's check out Tucker. We're gonna close the week by changing my focus from Gaza, Israel, that whole deal, which would probably mean that you all leave. Yeah, Tucker Carlson Tucker on X. You know I cover his work, so let's do it, Tucker. Give it to me, Tucker. Talking to me about the southern border.
In them. That is the most basic of all observations about the world.
What?
China is nations are defined by the people who live in them. That is the most basic of all observations about the world. China is different from Barbados, and not just because of geography. Austria and Zimbabwe are both landlocked countries in the middle of large continents, but they are not the same. That's because their populations are different. If you have a country brimming with people who work hard, believe in Christianity and Western standards of fairness, and are willing, therefore, to settle their differences without violence, you will likely have a peaceful, prosperous nation. You will have Sweden 50 years ago, before millions of non-Swedes arrived. If, by contrast, you have a nation full of people, however friendly and cheerful they may be, who don't believe in any of that, who embrace tribalism rather than universal principles of justice, who think 40 hours a week is too much for a man to work, and who, for whatever reason, have low impulse control, then you will get a place like Congo, a country that has remained in a state of perpetual civil war since before most Americans were born. It's that simple. There's a reason the German sections of southern Brazil are affluent and orderly, while Amazonia is not. It's because of the people. This is obvious. No honest person denies it or has ever denied it. But in this moment of national madness that has gripped the United States, our leaders are pretending that none of it is true, although, of course, they know perfectly well that it is true. The result is a country, our country, that is changing faster than it ever has, but not through democratic means. Instead, by force, through waves of mass immigration that not a single American voted for. What's happening is a crime. It violates both federal law and the core precept of democracy, which is that citizens get to govern their own countries. This is election rigging on a mass scale, and it's fueled by anti-white racial hostility. That is not a guess. The people doing it say so out loud. They brag about it. They are criminals. They must be punished for what they have done. In the meantime, it's worth knowing exactly what they are doing. This was the scene at the so-called border at El Paso, Texas, the other day.
It does really look strange that, like, our border looks like a Menudo concert. And it wouldn't look any better if it looked like a Taylor Swift concert. It's crazy.
That's your country being invaded. It will never be the same.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's insane. Ryan Kuhn, my man. Money to support Israel via your contribution, my dude. We need your influence. Oh, that's very thoughtful. Views and commentary. Fundamentals are important. The Amish, LDS, Mennonite, etc. Spreading conservatism. It is beautiful. It is. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very proud to be in this sphere. Truly. And thank you for your support, my friend. You're awesome.
Republicans in Congress, the Republican governor of Texas, do nothing as this happens. Democrats cheer it on. They know that America will soon be a one-party state, and they'll be in charge. Immigration is the reason. Todd Bensman joins us now from the border. He's a longtime journalist and the author.
I don't think that all these people streaming across the border love Democrats. I really don't buy it. I don't buy it. See, this is the thing. I don't think, and I do think that they're probably end up being naturalized because that's what ends up happening. It's like, okay, you really wanted to come here, you can be an American. And so will they end up voting? Yeah, what I'm saying is I don't think that by the time they get naturalized and have permission to vote, I don't think that they're going to be like, yeah, I'm very, very supportive. Like, because those people coming from Latin America, at least, they tend to be pretty sincere in their Christianity, far more so than someone from, I don't know, LA. I don't think that just because people have brown skin that means that they're necessarily voting Democrat. I think when we saw Cubans for Trump and we saw, Latinos for Trump and all these different people who are not Caucasian who are signing up, I think that the left is mistaken in believing that like an influx of millions of Latino every year is going to turn the country blue. I think that that's a very poor estimation on their part, and it's a misread as to. I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna say something that's gonna sound crazy. Okay, something that's gonna sound crazy. If you're worried about this influx turning the country blue, what I would say to you is thank God that this influx of illegal invaders of our country are not white. Okay? Because if they were white people, and they had the philosophies of Canadians, Australians, Germans, French people, Swiss people, the Scandinavian countries, they would all be voting blue every freaking election. Oh my God. Fortunately, these people are brown and from Central America. In Central America, they happen to have pretty strong Christian values. So yeah, by and large, they're not quite as into the whole trans agenda. They just ain't. I don't know. Yeah, everyone's looking at this like this is from a political. I don't look from a political perspective. I'm not worried about this at all. From a safety perspective, from a financial perspective, oh yeah, this is disaster. This is terrible. From a political perspective, not so sure. Really not so sure. Now, the only reason to think that they might end up going blue is because you would think that they're probably impoverished. Impoverished people tend to vote blue. But from a social political perspective, that's a financial political perspective. Social political perspective, They do not agree with the AOCs of the world. And I'm sure they sure as heck aren't worried about climate change. They much rather have money in their pockets than climate change. So that's my read on it. Thank God. My read on it is thank God they ain't white.
Author of the new book, Overrun, How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in American History. Todd, thanks so much for joining us. Where are you?
I am in Piedras Negras, which is in Mexico, just across from Eagle Pass, Texas. This has been a red hot spot for illegal immigration for the last couple of weeks.
Who's coming across, do you think, and how many?
Right now, immigrants from 160 different countries are crossing this border. These are going to be people from other than Mexico and other than Central America, really from all over the world, Middle Easterners, people from every country of Africa, and the numbers are absolutely stupendous. This mass migration crisis of the last 36 months, 30 plus months, broke every record in the national history books already. But now we're in a surge that is breaking all of those records. We're looking at, 14,000 apprehensions a day, 10,000, 11, 12,000 a day, where like 1,000 a day once upon a time a few years ago was considered a national emergency. It's 14,000. We're looking at probably pushing 300,000 plus a month, and I think it's going to be closer to 400,000 a month if you consider the CBP-1 app where they're bringing them in over the ports of entry. You don't see those ones, and flying tens of thousands directly from foreign countries into 43 American airports.
Why are they flying into airports? What the heck is happening? Why are they flying into airports? What the heck is happening?
Directly, so you don't see all that. There's going to be a lot of runners and gotaways as well to add to that.
And I think we've got to operate on the assumption that none of these people are going back to their countries of origin, that all of them are being supported by American taxpayers and have an expectation of staying here.
Absolutely. First of all, we're pushing 5 million people that we know for sure are inside the country in a very short period of time. Just the logistics of trying to track down everybody and execute deportation orders. And it's just, they're just going to, your odds, if you're an individual immigrant who crossed in and stayed in, are just phenomenal that you can just disappear into the ether of the country. Nobody's leaving.
So you're describing a total collapse of the rule of law.
Absolutely. If you come to
It's really horrific. It's really horrific. Because basically, you're going to be asked to finance the world. Everyone's coming in here and they're not paying for it. And then we're going to have government subsidies and services for these people, medical, health, food. And yeah, housing. You're going to be asked to pay for this until we're already bankrupt. This is a collapse. This is a collapse.
the U.S. southern border,
Welcome to Bidenomics.
if you are able to get over this river behind me
I'm
and
not
into
sure
the
Burning Man
hands
is in this context. They're indeed a conservative. Most of them are Catholic. Once they are legal, they are the most anti-legal people you'd ever meet. Yeah, that's certainly true. Everyone who comes here was like, I see all these constant thing like Venezuelans talking about how terrible it is down and embracing like the socialist policies that they have there, or allowing legal immigration. How do I know? How do they keep in the U.S.? They get insurance with international driver's licenses, but they buy insurance. All right.
of Biden's border patrol, you are guaranteed entry and stay in the United States. You're almost guaranteed. In addition to that, the administration has put together 3 or 4 different what they call lawful pathways that they are enabling people to cross, like kind of pre-legalized, pre-approved. They just kind of came up with this off the top of their heads, but like hundreds of thousands of foreign nationals are entering that way. 1 to 5 different ways that you can enter the country and successfully stay for a long term, because the whole calculus for the immigrants is, if I lay down $10,000 in smuggling fees, I want a return on investment. And that is entry and long-term stay so I can pay it back. And that is guaranteed right now. So Honduran villages are emptying out. Population transfers are happening right now from places like Cuba, Guatemala, African countries. People are coming, they're emptying out of their countries and coming through because there's a return on that smuggling investment to get here, because we are letting them in. We are deporting almost no one. We are detaining almost no one. I've interviewed thousands of these immigrants. On the other side at the bus station,
Crazy.
you can find them with their papers 24 hours after they get caught crossing over here. They're stamped in and they're on a bus to New York City or wherever, all across the country.
We are not, like you said, we're letting, I mean, it's their criminal political class and the criminal NGOs who are pilot fished on that class who are making this possible. But most people are totally opposed to this. It's supposed to be our country. We're supposed to be its owners. We're paying for this. And I wonder, at an earlier age, you would of course see American men with their own rifles standing on the border stopping it. Does there come a point where people just say, this is a criminal government and we're going to stop the invasion of our country?
I mean, listen, ultimately, this is an electoral issue. This is going to come down to the 2024 election. Who is in the inauguration seat in January 2025? This thing started in a 24-hour period. You can trace it right to the day it started, Inauguration Day 2021. It has a very distinct beginning, and it can be ended in 24 hours just as well, with the kind of policies that make that smuggling investment not worth it, not worth the risk. That's really what the calculus is. And also remember that, I've never met an immigrant who wasn't equipped with a cell phone, a modern cell phone connected to social media, and everybody down trail is very keyed in on their phones to everybody up trail. And when we as the U.S. government let them in, that immediately broadcast to the entire world of aspiring immigrants. And that's when villages empty out. And that's what's happening right now. The only way to really stop this is with policies that take away the reward for laying your smuggling money down on the green felt.
I mean, you're in Texas. I don't know if you live there full time, but you're certainly there a lot.
I don't know why
when
it
you
is.
visit Texas,
I don't know why it is that he's saying that the only way to stop them from coming is by implementing the policies that we had under Trump. That I don't think that's even necessarily true. You know, we just need someone.
And I believe if you come to our
strong.
border, you will be turned back.
U.S. Vice President Kamala
There you
Harris
go.
in Guatemala on Monday said
You just need to say, don't come. Do not come. Don't come. That's been our policy. That's been our policy. Don't come. Please don't come. Please don't.
Texas now, it's very obvious that the state has changed and for the much worse. Litter everywhere, it's chaotic. The political balance is changing because the demographic balance is changing. Do people in Texas see this as an emergency, do you think? And if so, why is nobody doing anything about it?
Yes, I do believe that. I mean, there is a dawning realization, not just in Texas, but in cities like Chicago and New York and Boston and Miami and everywhere else, where unfunded masses of people are suddenly showing up with, nobody expected this. We weren't budgeted for this. We don't have anywhere to put them or anywhere to feed them. And that is just getting going. You ain't seen nothing yet compared to what's coming. And in Texas, you have the big cities, obviously there are, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people settling in those cities, and they're settling everywhere else too. And you can't not notice it. The regular voter, the regular American, anybody, Democrats too, can't help but notice this as a big pocketbook issue and some other issues too. This is transformative, what's happening to the United States. If we've had 5 million, and that's an undercount, now we very well may have another 3 or 4 million by the end of the first Biden term.
Yeah. So these are permanent changes. And again, this is the greatest crime ever perpetrated on the American people. Last question, since we saw the tragedy in Israel just a few days ago, tied directly to borders, immigration, the nature of the population, et cetera, et cetera.
This is the quote.
Do not come.
There you go.
Do not come.
I'm going to come.
There you go. There you go. Not supporting it philosophically, but think it through. Yeah. I agree with you. I think that they're Christian. I do think the financial might push them blue. That could happen. I think you'll see it like a split. I know large numbers. I know how it works. Okay. Bob, that got me mad. On the bright side, we could probably go buy ourselves those towns that are abandoned. The humidity might be rough, though. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's this guy over here. I don't know who you're saying doesn't know what he's talking about. He said that 3 minutes ago. No, you need to kick them out quick. If you do that, it's solved. It isn't a wall. But how do you need to stop them from coming so fast. And apparently, Kamala's not really that good at that skill. Kamala, don't come. Americans are going to come. Yeah. Pocketbook issue. This is a minor issue. I don't think it's a minor issue until there's no pocketbook anymore. Wasn't the come thing last night's joke? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, my friend. I covered that last night. I had my dad on last night. I don't think that was.
Is anybody concerned? Anybody in the Biden administration or among the criminal NGOs?
Of course, they're not concerned. They're so
about
short-sighted. They can't see past the end of their noses.
Coming into our country, these seem like mostly men of war age to me. Did anyone saying anything about that?
Well, last month I was invited to testify before the House Judiciary Committee on terrorist travel over the southern border. And in my testimony, I pointed out that, we've had a record-breaking number of immigrants apprehended who are on the FBI's terrorism watch list already. Those are the ones we caught among 1.8 million that we never caught, estimated, and that's a low estimation. And I couldn't help but notice during my testimony that the Democratic side of the desk, the dais, they would withdraw and go into their cell phones and start looking at TikTok and Facebook, and they were not interested. Almost kind of like the Israelis, maybe before this incredible, devastating attack by Hamas. There is a complacency, and I think by half of the country. Terrorist organizations are imaginative, just like we saw, and it's not a
Because good times make fat people make. How's it go? Good times make weak men tough. Good times make weak men. Weak men make weak times. Weak times make strong men. Strong men make strong times. Strong times make weak men. Something like that. I'm close.
a huge
And we're in the strong times, weak men's phase.
leap to consider that somebody might come in here through this completely collapsed southern border and go into a shopping mall or do something else at some point.
Yeah. Well, if there was ever a reason to have a citizens militia, this is it, I would say. Todd Bensman, appreciate so much your reporting. Thank you for joining us.
Well, there you go.
So just to restate, this is not organic. It's not an accident. It's not a natural disaster. Our country is being invaded because our political class welcomed, invited, and then abetted the invasion. Democrats are power-drunk nihilists. The Republicans elected to hold them in check are unfortunately dishonest cowards. It does not need to be this way. Dominik Tarczynski is a member of the European Parliament. He's from Poland, and he is unapologetically working to protect his country from radical demographic change.
Wow, look at the based polls. The based polls.
Which nobody welcomes in any country on planet Earth. We thought it'd be interesting to talk to him now, and we're grateful that he's joining us. Dominik, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I want to just frame this for people who haven't been following it with a conversation that you had with
Tucker
a
needs to have me on.
bewildered interviewer. I believe this is Channel 4 in Great Britain. Here's how it unfolded.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me,
You should. Yes.
if you are asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none, not even one, will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But I asked
This
not
quota
about
system
illegal
failed.
immigrants. I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the
Just because you call an illegal immigrant refugee doesn't mean that they're not an illegal immigrant. That's the stupidest thing that the left loves using semantics for. They're asylees. They're not legal. They're asylees. No, you're not asylees. These are not, zero of these illegal immigrants are asylees the way that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez loves to pretend.
Commission president says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any
I don't care about your stupid labels saying I'm racist. You call anyone who disagrees with you racist. You destroyed the term, unfortunately. That was your choice, though.
refugees.
People are crazy.
Of course, because this is what our people are expecting from our government. That's number one. This is why our government was elected. But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we had not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland. And we can be called populists, nationalists, racists. I don't care. I care
There
about
you
my
go.
family and about
There
my
you
country.
go. I love it. I love it. So does Tucker. He does his little Mozart laugh there. I guess who am I to mock someone's laugh, right? I got my whole Eddie Murphy thing going on.
It's so unbelievable. That woman, I don't know what the word for repulsive in Polish is, but she qualifies. Anyway, I just want to say I think it's
One of the greatest interviews that woman ever has with Jordan Peterson. And he just destroys her. Just it's like he takes out one of those ninja samurai knives and just like zing, 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 zing. It's awesome.
the greatest exchange I've seen in a
Yes, I
long
know.
time.
She was surprised by the honest words. She was so surprised.
So tell us about your thinking on this question. You don't seem embarrassed at all. God bless you. But why are you not embarrassed? Why are you not like everybody else in Europe?
Because I'm proud. Because I love Poland. Because I love my mother.
Probably true, but lesser of two evils is still evil. Okay. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm simply saying the reason I assume you're talking about when I was talking about how thank God they're not white. My point was people claim, the left loves to claim the reason you don't want them to come is because you're racist, but if they were white, you would welcome them. And the answer is no. If they were white, they'd be worse. I'd be much more against it. Much more against it. The joke you didn't want your dad to understand. Oh, that happens once a show, then he comes on. I didn't remember that specific one. No, I know that one. No, the one that wait, which one? I know there was one that the one guy told a joke about a guy with a hat, which my dad then just went there. I don't remember. I got pulled over for pulling a gun on myself and my pillows, and the cop said that wasn't free speech. Myself and my pillows, and the cop said that it wasn't free speech. I'd like you to defend me. You could do better than me. Trust me, you could do better. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make bad times. Yeah, I think I said something to that effect. But I appreciate you clarifying. Father got me mad. Said we need an all trans border patrol because I can pause for those who can come here. When they're done with them, they'll never come again. I kind of like that. Are those lobsters? But what about your fascination with the lobsters? What's with your fascination with the lobsters? Didn't think I'd ever find someone who knows Mozart from that movie. Oh, that's the only way I know Mozart. That's the difference between, you want to know the difference between my father and I is that's what I know of Mozart as opposed to my father who would basically be playing, Ein klein Nachtmusik or something. And I'd be like, I don't know. I just know.
My sister, my daughters, our daughters as a families, because we care about them, because we are not afraid to say no. Most of the spineless politicians, leftist politicians in here, in European Parliament, in Brussels, they are afraid. They want to be the part of this leftist way of thinking flat, I would say. And Poland is completely different. I must say Poland is, I would say, the last stronghold of normality, Christianity, family values in Europe. Obviously, Hungary are doing good as well, but by the size, we are the ones who are very much attacked at the moment. So we are not afraid. We believe in Poland. We are skyrocketing. When you see the data from here, from Eurostat. Eurostat is an official body in European Parliament in here. By the Eurostat, Poland is the safest country in Europe. And the question is, why? Never changed since we took power.
You seen a Polish woman? No one's attacking them. Polish woman like bear.
Since 2015, there is a very, very simple policy: zero illegal migration, which means zero terrorist attacks. Poland is the only country in Europe without terror attack. We don't have stabbings. We don't have rapes in parks. We don't have all this rubbish in Poland.
Have you seen Polish women?
Why? Because we are very, very strict on migration. As a lawyer, I was listening to your conversation. As a lawyer, I'm doing my PhD on international law and human rights. I must confirm they are not refugees. They are illegal migrants committing crime. They are criminals. They should be sent back, punished, and then sent back from wherever they came from. So people are afraid to say obvious facts, and we are not afraid. That's why we are so successful. Again, Eurostat, the lowest unemployment, the highest GDP growth. We are just booming.
I'm gonna say this. I'm seeing a few people say this. To be fair, the only Polish women I ever see are like Polish Jewish grandmothers. So maybe that's why my taste is not like very into the Poles.
And the most important, one of the lowest debts in Poland, public debts. But the most important thing is zero illegal migration.
This guy is
equals
awesome.
Zero terrorist attacks. The safest place in Europe, Poland. That is why I've got this motto in here. Be like Poland. I don't know if you can see it. That's my personal motto, because I'm so proud. I'm so proud of Poland. Look at the data and then answer yourself. Do you want to be like Poland, or you want to be like, unfortunately, some borders in Europe and in the United States? And I must say, President Trump was right about the wall. President Trump, you are an inspiration. Thank you for that. We built the wall, and no one is able to come to Poland. Wall is the part of our safety. So President Trump was right, but most of these leftists are too low to say, yes, he was right. They would never admit it because they are wrong. So that's very simple. That's a common sense. That's nothing unusual for us, for Polish, to be brave, to believe in our own nation, to love our families, to take care about our families and our country, and then think about someone else. That's so simple.
It is so simple, but I asked you, why do you have this attitude that is unknown in the rest of the West? And you said, because I'm proud to be Polish. I have self-respect. I love my country. Yes. Is it, no country in Europe, maybe in the world, suffered more than Poland did over the last 100 years from every direction, crushed.
They have every time. Anytime there's a war, one thing that we know is this, seriously. Like, you could have Liechtenstein invading Switzerland, and all of a sudden, like, half of Poland is lost. You're like, how did that happen? How did that happen? When you when you read about Blitzkrieg in 1939, and you're like, and the tanks rolling through Poland, and then they're like, you know, and the Polish cavalry. It's like, you think to yourself, oh my God. The Polish cavalry being demolished by German tanks in Blitzkrieg. I remember the first time I read that, I was like, they had horses against tanks. Like, this is like, I was just astonished. The Polish cavalry getting wiped out by German tanks. And they're constantly getting flattened all the time. They really do. They got butchered. It was terrible. Janelle says, my daughter-in-law, her mom and sisters waited 15 years to move here legally from the Dominican Republic a few years ago. Daughter-in-law lost 3.5 years of college credits in the Dominican Republic, had to start over. Yeah. That's because they didn't walk across the border. Everything would have been fine if they did that. I knew a survivor from Poland. She wasn't a fan. Yeah. There were a lot of Polish Jews. I'll tell you right now, my family is mostly Polish. My mother's side. Her father was in an area. He came from a little town called Matala. That was, if you ask him, he says it was sometimes Poland, sometimes Russia. It depends on what year it was. But and his wife, my grandmother, was from Poland. Also, I bet Poland's annexed what left of West Ukraine. I don't think the Poles are deemed a threat to anyone. But this guy is based.
Why have the Poles emerged? Did they emerge from the 20th century with their self-respect intact, whereas Great Britain, obviously Germany, all of Western Europe, they hated themselves by the end, but the Poles didn't.
Yeah, he knows his stuff.
Because we suffered so much. You have to.
I'm going to tell you the reason my father knows as much about history as he does, where he's able to just sort of like pull back, like, all of a sudden, and he's, God bless him, he's 83 years old. Okay. And the amount of history inside his brain is like a library. And the reason is because whenever since he was like a young boy, he was always fascinated by history. He thought it's like a story. So he would sit there just reading history all the time. And then he met my mother, who from her childhood was doing the exact same thing. Okay. That's basically where I'm coming from. That was their hobby. Their dates were literally sitting in the library next to each other, reading completely different topics, historical. Okay, that's what their dates were, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that like as a joke, like, oh yeah, they're both so into reading that's what their dates were. No, that's literally how they dated. Was just sitting in a library, reading next to each other. So, he had in his library a collection of books. I mean, his library that you see behind him now is not the library he had when I was growing up. Okay, the library that he's sitting in front of there is what we would call a base medrash or a beit midrash, which is basically full of Jewish books. When I was growing up, he did not have that. Most of his books were historical books, and when I'm talking about historical books, I mean these. It would be volume after volume after volume, each volume being these thick books about like the Byzantine Empire from 1385 to 1389, and it's like a 400-page book, and then the next one would be another 400-page book covering like the next 6 years of the Byzantine Empire, and and it would just be like, and it would be one series after another. That's his Byzantine Empire based on this historian's perspective, but there would be like another series on the Byzantine Empire. And why do I know about these books? He kept them in our basement. Okay. And when I go down to the basement, there would just be books everywhere. I mean, everywhere. This is when I was really little, when I was like 5. And we lived the house that we were situated in was on a corner that is at the bottom. That there's at the bottom of 3.5 hills. What do I mean when I say the bottom of 3.5 hills? What that means is that if you come out of from the front door of my house and you turn to your right, you have to walk uphill. If you cross the street, he lives on a corner. If you cross the street and start walking up this way, you're walking up a hill. You walk the other way, you're walking up a hill. If you come out of my house and make a left, it's flat for a couple blocks, and then you start going up a hill. So that's sort of like 3 hills and then like a half, because it's like 3 blocks away is the other hill. He's basically sitting in a valley. And then he had the house is situated with a driveway which comes down into a garage below a ranch house that I grew up in. So that's where he used to park the car every once in a while. Very rarely. We had like I remember he had like, I don't know, like a 67 Buick or something. And when there would be massive rainstorms, all the water would flood down onto our corner and then come down into our driveway. And I would see water that's like 4 feet high, because every once in a while there would be like a sewer issue and the street would flood. And the water would basically be like sitting against our garage door. I remember this as like a 5-year-old. And then we would hear a big boom, and the water would come crashing through the garage and flood our basement in like 30 seconds. There would literally be 4 feet of water in our basement. Now, when you're storing in your basement volumes and volumes, and I'm telling you, without exaggeration, he had thousands of books that were down there. And he would tell us that these are really rare and expensive books. So he couldn't just like throw them in the garbage, even though they're waterlogged with sewer water. So do you know what you have to do when you have a flood like that basically floods that and destroys all those books? I remember as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, because we had these floods happen 2, 3, 4 times, that after these floods would come, what we'd end up having to do is, and I'm going to finish this in a minute, after those floods would come, myself, my sister, and my brother, we would base, as well as my father and mother, that we would first get the water would drain out pretty quickly over, like, it would just go out, over time the sewers would clear up, and then boom, everything would, all the water would clear out. What you're left with is like this mildew that's everywhere. So the smell of Lysol was constantly, this would happen like late summer, early early fall, around this time of year, maybe a month early, maybe like late August, early September. And then there would just be the stench of mildew would be like rising from our basement. And then there would be the books, which are waterlogged with this sewer water. And it would be like these volumes and volumes of books. And I literally remember spending like weeks taking a book, thick book, which is swollen and waterlogged. And you take it and you open up the cover, and then you have to slowly peel back the page and put in a paper towel, and then slowly peel back the next page and put another paper towel, one after another, after another, after another. If you're going to go through a 600-page book like that, even if you're skipping pages here and there, which, trust me, you will, I can assure you, even if you're skipping pages, what ends up happening is that you spend like 2.5 hours, and now you finally and it gets fat and fatter and fatter. So like you sort of have to stop and like at a certain point start taking the paper towels out, because just can't, the book just starts exploding open. But then you basically, it's after like an hour and a half, you manage to get those pages all apart. And you look at that book, and you're like, wow, I got that done. And then you look out and you see like, okay, only 6,437 books left to go. It's like, oh my God. Oh, I can't. I mean, some of them he gave up on. He was just like, I just can't. But like, so then he started building these shelves in the basement, and he would put them on these shelves, which was supposed to be like 4 feet high, which helped a lot. It helped a lot, but still, then we get the mildew. And then finally, he put a little barricade over the garage, and everything just got much better. We never had to worry about it again. So I don't remember. So, but you say that he knows his stuff. The reason he knows his stuff is because he read a lot, he collected a lot of this stuff, and he just made it his life's work. So that's why that's why I know I could sort of taunt him and sort of poke at him that like he's off by like 2 or 3 years about some historical event that I didn't know ever happened before he just mentioned it, and start saying, "No, Dad, I really think you're off on this one." Like, I have no idea. I don't even know what he's talking about. I won't even remember what he just said 3 minutes later. It's just my way. That's how I would engage my dad. But there you go. Winged Hussars got nerfed in the World War II patch. Oh, you're talking about the cavalry, the Polish cavalry getting destroyed. I'm dating a Viet, and she's a nerd like me. I get it. Yeah. The Byzantines had flamethrowers. Maybe. Fluent English in 2 years and manager in good New York City restaurants at 23. Go, daughter-in-law. I'm glad. Can you ask your father if he's seen a Makor, which means a source for Germany being Amalek in the Talmud? Germany is the nation called Amalek. He's seen that. Aish has a thing on it with Nuremberg trials and Megillus Esther. Yeah, I don't know if he's seen it, but I've heard it from many people. I've heard it from many people. I don't remember seeing it, but I don't remember seeing it, but I remember hearing it. This I never had to do. Oh, you never had to clean out stuff? You never had to clean out books before? My introduction to Dune or Asimov or other things, never that. Wow. Yeah, and I had to tell you something. I enjoy reading, like finding something that like now as I'm older, I enjoy reading. And I went down to his library down there in the basement where he keeps his historical stuff as opposed to like his Jewish stuff, which is up where he's sitting there now. And I go through those books and they still look crazy boring to me. I'm like, why would someone, I don't know why he has this stuff. So boring. And I try reading, I'm like, you know what, maybe if I open it and I start reading it, I'm going to like it, you know? And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to get to the good part. I got to work my way into this book and it's going to get better. And it never does. I never made it more than 20 pages into any of them. And it's a chore. Some of the writing there. So laborious.
Remember that Poland did not exist for 123 years.
Yes.
We were, because of the partitions, 123 years non-existence on the map, and our nation survived. Not only that, As you know, we were attacked on 1st of September 1939 by Germany. That's how the war started. Then 16 days later, on 17th, the same month, Russians attacked, and we were occupied after the war for 70 years by the Soviets. So we had to, once we freed our nation from the communism, we knew what the freedom is. We understood much better than others what it means to give up your freedom, to give up your land, to give.
Because tough times make hard men, and hard men make strong. Tough times make strong men, and strong men make good times.
Up your culture. And now we are so homogenic society. We love it. We love our culture. We love our language. We love our food. We love our
Their language is very difficult.
family values. We love everything what is about Poland because this is our land. No one is taking it from us anymore, and no one will ever take anything from that. That's why we don't want any Wahhabists in Poland. They will not be let in. We don't want any jihadists. We don't want any Hamas supporters in Poland or Hamas members. We know they're going to try to move throughout the world. So, as I said previously, and I keep repeating for years, not even one will come to Poland ever.
I'm going to join you in Warsaw for dinner at some point. I can't control myself. Last question. Well, I'm going to. I'm going to. So, last question. What?
I'd love to meet this guy also and join him in Poland. But I definitely wouldn't get on a Polish train because I would have all these flashbacks and be haunted that some little 9-year-old blonde girl when the train's pulling out would just start screaming at me, "Goodbye, Jews! Goodbye, Jews!" That's the sort of joke that if I ever said in front of my mother, she'd be annoyed at me. She'd be like, "That's not funny." Yes, sir, that's not funny. That's not funny. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not funny. I saw the wall in person. I had feelings. Well, when you see
what advice would you? So in the United States, I know you're familiar with our system, but we have the Democratic Party effectively in charge of the government, but also industry runs our economy, unfortunately. And then we have this thing called the Republican Party, which is elected to push back and kind of keep them from going totally insane. They haven't done that because they're cowards. That's my view.
I don't think it's cowardice. I think it's
what
intentional.
advice would you give Republican lawmakers now, a year out from an election, on this question of immigration?
Be brave or you will not exist. Be brave. Believe in what you think. Believe in your values. Believe in family. Don't talk about it. Do it. As I said, President Trump built the wall. Poland built the wall. We are safe. It's so simple. You have to believe in yourself and be strong. This is war. This is not a joke.
Back at you.
This is war. Actually, what is happening at the border is a hybrid war, and the war needs soldiers. So behave like a man, be a soldier, be responsible, and fight. Then you have a chance to win.
Dominic Charczynski, that was an inspiring conversation, and I'm grateful that you joined us today. Thank you so much. I will see you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that crossed the line, Monk and Training. I'm not even pulling that one up. That crossed the line. I'm not doing it. I'm not offended. I'm just saying I'm not pulling that one up. All right. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything over here. Speaking of Poland, let me check on my ghetto, my personal ghettos. All right, I'm good over here. All right, that ghetto's good. Gaza's good. West Bank is good. All right. That is my show. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. Maybe you learned something. I don't know. Maybe it was informative. Whatever it was, that's all I got for you tonight. And that's all I got for you this week till Saturday night. Saturday night, probably early Sunday morning, if you're being technical about it, is when I expect you back here. I will be on Laid Back News, God willing, tomorrow with Eric Hunley. So if you want to find me there or in Spaces or whatever, you need to follow me at goodlogic.locals.com, goodlogic.locals.com. He has a ghetto, but I'm offensive. Yes. it crossed the line. It crossed the line. You know it. You know it. It crossed the line. You know I saw it. You know I saw it. That one bothers some people. That one bothers some people. Okay, and I'll just close with this. Okay, on that, Monk in training. I'm going to tell you something, Monk. I want to tell you something. One of the guys who's been in this chat tonight, friend of mine, that guy you see, Shaul, I told him that my entire life, with humor that I use, I have always tried to walk the fine line. There's a very fine line between being an A and being a hole. There's a very fine line. And my intuition has been very, very keen about how to always be the former and almost never, ever be the latter. And I know where that line is. I know where the line is. So trust me on my instinct on that one. With that, my friends, I thank you all for joining me. And I know you didn't mean anything by it. I'm just telling you how people would have read it. I was saving yourself as well, me and you with that. With that, my friends, I thank you all for joining me. And I'm going to wish you all good night. Have a great weekend. And as always, my friends, I say to you, Godspeed.